Dropping that culture. 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 Dropping that culture.
All right, and welcome to another edition of Dropping That Culture with JD and AJ. I'm JD.
I'm AJ.
And this is our first show post-Christmas, so I hope you folks had a very Merry Christmas. As we were recording this, Christmas was yesterday. I honestly didn't do much. I went to a Chinese buffet and hung out at a cigar shop. That was basically my Christmas.
I would have totally been on board with that, but we were doing the family thing this year, so I was out running around with my wife and her family, and it was good.
That's what's up. That's beautiful, man. Like, everybody has their own little thing. One thing I kept seeing a lot, of course, this Christmas time was everybody was doing like family portraits this year. So it's them, or if they don't have a family per se, it's like boyfriend and girlfriend and a dog or the cat and crap like that. But I was happy to see so many families. Doing
I was happy to see your family portrait with you and a cigar. That was a great photo.
That was basically my family.
So, you know what? It's a good family. That was my family for a long time.
Yeah, but real talk, I actually, called the folks back home, checked up on them and made sure everybody's doing okay. Mainly just talked to my mom and my dad. But yeah, from what I saw and from what I'm seeing, things good, which is all I can hope for Christmas.
Hey, speaking of family, I was thinking about this the other day. So I know you were saying your brother wants you to say that Michael is who
he wants. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But when I thought about it, you're actually probably more like Michael because you left. So if you come back and then you jump in the family, you're Michael. He's actually probably more Sunny, right? Because he stayed there. He's doing the family thing on the regular.
Okay, I can give.
I thought about it the other day. I didn't call you on it, but I was like, you know what?
That makes a lot more sense. But I know him, and he's gonna.
He still wants to be Michael.
So,
hey, who doesn't want to be Michael? Michael gets it all, dude.
Exactly. So there's a. As soon as I try to get out, they pull me back in. It's the only line from the third one I actually like. So
it's the only line anybody liked from the third one.
All right, but let's jump right into this thing. So, like I said, this is more pressure than ever now. Let's do another 7 Degrees of Eddie Murphy. Now, as we're recording this past Saturday, Eddie Murphy made his triumphant return to SNL and gave them their highest rated episode in a couple years. I think they said the last episode that was rated that high was like some Melissa McCarthy episode like 2 or 3 years ago. I think it's when she was still doing the Sean Spicer thing.
Oh, that sounds about right.
Yeah, so, but yeah, like I said, he did fantastic. Many people, are loving it. They're just so happy to see Eddie back on the SNL stage after 30 plus years. And he brought back most of his, old school menagerie. He brought back Gumby, brought back Velvet Jones, he brought back what's his name?
Buckwheat was back.
Buckwheat was back, even though Buckwheat's supposed to be dead. Buckwheat came back, and also they brought back Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. That one was actually, I think, that worked the best because the fact of the characters, they all did great, but of the characters, this one worked the best because the fact it melded into a common topic right now, which was gentrification. So Mr. Robinson now, he still lives in the same neighborhood, but it's filled with white folks now. So
it makes it a lot more fun.
Exactly, and he comments on that shit. I love that he's talking about he said gentrification is when white folks come in with a lot of money, and then all of a sudden all the black folks disappear. And where do the black folks go? Where they came from, Atlanta. It worked so well, man. And that one worked so well. But like I was telling AJ, the one I felt worked the best was a skit called Home for the Holidays, which apparently they'd done before with like Amy Schumer and a couple other people. But basically it's Eddie and most of the cast having this holiday dinner. They're playing like a family. And while he's doing this beautiful heartfelt toast talking about how he loves the family and all the wonderful things that's happening in the family, the intercut was really happening in the family. So it's like black and white and then like complaining about everything. Everybody's annoying each other. And it's just so fucking funny. So yeah, that one made me laugh the most. It was great. And like I said, overall, and then of course the monologues were really what a lot of people talking about because it was Eddie plus a lot of the people, but basically most of the major people that he influenced, meaning Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, and Tracy Morgan all came back all at the same time. And then a lot of people were kind of like iffy about Kenan Thompson being up there too. But you know what? I say this. Kenan Thompson is the longest serving SNL member of all time. Okay? Now he might not have the breakout characters that like some of the other people that came before him had. But in terms of his longevity, he's beaten nobody. And also the fact that, you know, personally, Kenan Thompson has been doing sketch comedy since I was a kid. You know what I'm saying? So like, because between all that and, you know, SNL, he's been on TV literally forever. I've seen most of his stuff. So
is that the agent or is that the talent?
That's a good question.
Because look, here's the thing. I grew up watching SNL and watching all that. And dude, like, even when they were doing like sketches I'd seen before, like Fire Marshal Bill and all those kinds of things, and they were basically having kids do, you know, In Living Color and SNL, different things. It was obvious it was straight carbon copy. It was great. And you know what? I thought he was extremely entertaining, and he was great on that. My biggest criticism across the board, I've never seen any real growth on that, and he's never put me in stitches laughing, right? I mean, it's like you can talk about Eddie Murphy, you can talk about Jim Carrey, you can go down the list of all the great comedic actors. Yeah. Everybody ebbs and flows. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Yeah. I mean, you know what? What's Ron Howard's brother's name?
Clint Howard.
Clint Howard. That's basically how I feel about it. It's like he's been around forever. He gets in a lot of stuff. He doesn't necessarily bother me. But I never get anything where I go, oh my god, that guy! Did you see like
he's amazing? Yeah,
and dude, the like black church lady thing that he does. Yeah, it's the same from when he was 13, man. It just kills me to see it.
Yeah, my thing is this with Kenan. Like I said, I respect the hell out of his longevity. Yeah, but like I just said, like while we're talking about that, like that's the one controversial person that was on there because like a lot of people was like, why are you up there? Mainly because, like I said, of the fact he hasn't really had that one breakout performance or one breakout character where everybody's like, oh my god, Kenan Thompson is the next guy. He's been on the show for literally decades now and it's never really happened. However, in recent years, I think his bread and butter right now in terms of his sketch repertoire would be Black Jeopardy. He like that's really his best thing right now, and he kills it pretty much every time he does that shit. So I love Black Jeopardy, and but like a lot of people say it's more the guest. It's more the guest.
It's a guest spot.
That's I would say it's more the guest than Kenan, but he holds that thing together, and I can respect that as a sketch performer. So
well, and look, and there's nothing wrong if he's going to turn out to be the next game show host. Like he's got that. Like he's not an annoying presence on screen. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just SNL is supposed to be a place for comedic chops for somebody to come out and bust my side, and I don't get that with him.
I think he's like doing something like that right now. I think on NBC it's like a So You Think You're Funny, or like one of those type shows where it's like stand-ups and different people doing their acts, kind of like So You Think You Could Dance or like The Voice, shit like that. I think he's one of the judges. I think it's like him, Jeff Foxworthy, and a couple other people. But like I said, I have respect for him, but like a lot of people, whatever. Anyway, going back to the actual show itself. Fantastic show, lot of heartfelt moments. They brought back a lot of people for the show. A lot of people were happy to see Eddie back. So because like the first skit was like one of those like political Democratic debate ones. So they brought back a lot of people. They brought back Larry David, Rachel Dratch, Maya Rudolph, who of course kills it. Maya Rudolph, Jason Sudeikis. About him. They brought him back.
I was just watching Horrible Bosses last night.
So a lot. And you see them at the end. They were so happy to see Eddie back. And like I said, I really hope he does this more often. You know what I'm saying? Because he has a couple other movies in the works right now. So I'm pretty sure he'll be back again for like Coming to America when it comes out, or Beverly Hills Cop when it comes out. Might as well like fucking just have Eddie back on there again. The curse is broken. You know what I'm saying? Like. And a lot of people, so many people wonder why was he never on there before? He has no, because like I said, he has no loyalty to Lauren Michaels. So really, he kind of did this as a favor, more or less. But like I said, it's really great.
I mean, you get to a certain point in your career too, though. I mean, you got to think some of it's got to be nostalgia. Yeah. And like the energy of doing a show like SNL, even if you're just coming in as a guest. Completely different from doing, your $10 million movie where you show up to get your $10 million paycheck. It's 6 weeks. You do your thing. Like, that versus the get up and grind of, hey, we got 7 days to get this thing ready to rock and roll. Yeah. You do the dress and then you pray to God that it doesn't all end up screwed up or on the floor during the slaughter.
Yeah. All right, so let's get actually to the game itself. So 7 Degrees of Eddie Murphy. So pick a couple for me tonight.
Well, since this is a watch along, I think I'm leaning a little bit towards some James Bond themes. So I'm going to start with one of my favorite James Bond of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Connery.
Good one. Okay. So Sean Connery. Oh, that's a good one. Sean Connery was in. Got it. Sean Connery was in Entrapment with Catherine Zeta-Jones. Catherine Zeta-Jones was in The Phantom with Christy Swanson. Christy Swanson was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer with Pee Wee Herman. Pee Wee Herman was in The Blues Brothers with Dan Aykroyd. Dan Aykroyd was in Trading Places with Eddie Murphy.
I like how you brought it back to Trading Places.
I like I brought in Pee Wee Herman, bro.
Pee Wee Herman was a jump.
Yeah, but Pee Wee Herman in Buffy was hilarious, especially his death. Like, ugh.
Pee Wee Herman's just funny anyway. Pee Wee's Big Adventure, man. That was.
We are doing a Pee Wee's a Big Adventure episode eventually. We are going to do that. I think we'll probably do like a Tim Burton poll, see like who wants to see the Tim Burton thing. Something that we don't. The Tim Burton movie we've done so far is Batman, but there's other Tim Burton movies out there we can give a shot. So.
All right. Well, since we're watching Skyfall tonight with Daniel Craig, let's do Daniel Craig.
Oh, very good choice.
That's gonna be easy. He's done so much.
I was just about to say this is super easy right now. Daniel Craig's in Knives Out with Jamie Lee Curtis. Jamie Lee Curtis is in Trading Places with Eddie Murphy.
All right. Well, since you have a favorite, let's do Timothy Dalton.
Oh wow, Timothy Dalton.
Before we get into the longer conversation as to why Timothy, why Tim, why?
You really don't like my choice of Timothy Dalton for some reason.
It's just the weirdest one to me.
Okay, all right, fine. So Timothy Dalton was in. Got it. Timothy Dalton was in The Beautician and the Beast with Fran Drescher. Fran Drescher was in This Is Spinal Tap with Billy Crystal, because he's one of the mimes. Billy Crystal was in. I got it. Billy Crystal. Oh yeah, Billy Crystal was in The Princess Bride with Carrie Elways. Carrie Elways was in Robin Hood Men in Tights with Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle was with Eddie Murphy and the Nutty Professor.
All right, not bad.
Exactly.
You got there. You're getting close to the 7.
I got Timothy Dalton, and I put in Fran Drescher, bro.
That right there is a proof positive as to why we don't do 5 degrees. You start going deep like Timothy Dalton. It's going to take a little more to get there.
Timothy Dalton, baby. All right, so we go ahead and knock that. Let's go ahead and Q2, so we got that. So let's go to another wonderful segment here on the show. What would Busey say?
Oh, yes, Mr. Busey. Well, again, we're trying to do everything themed for this episode. I would like to know what Gary Busey would say about Aston Martins.
Oh, yeah, okay, here you go. Aston Martins. I always loved that vehicle. I loved watching it in Goldfinger when I was a young buck. And the rockets coming out the back and the missiles coming out the front. And, oh my God, such a beautiful, sleek machine, such a wonderful piece of engineering. Now, keep in mind, it's not an American car. I'll give it that. I mean, it's decent for what it is now. It's not a fucking Chevy, but it's a really nice car, you know. But personally speaking, if I was a secret agent, I would definitely get a Chevy. And that's a doorbell right there. And I'm going to keep this going while we go get the pizza. You know what I love about pizza? I love different types of pizza. I love pizza with pineapples, pizza with anchovies. And I like the different types of pizza that most people do not like. The one that people find absolutely disgusting. I don't know what it is, but those types of pizza appeal to me. And you know what I would love to do? Have a pizza in the Aston Martin and then go on this great spy mission where I'm like trying to save the world or like trying to acquire like a microchip or something. You know, something that really, you know, has world-ending stakes. And I think it would be fantastic for the world to see. Well, actually, the world can't see what I'm doing because, in fact, I'm a secret agent. So let's put that logic out the window there. But I will say this. I love me some Aston Martins. I think it's a fantastic vehicle. But in my terms of, like, what I would do for a spy car, it's got to be a Chevy. Possibly a Camaro. A spy Camaro. That would be great. With Stinger missiles in the headlights. And then I have an ejector button, and then I'll have one button that puts it on mute, so I can go to like different parts of the city, just go fucking nuts in my car and nobody know I'm there. And it's fucking fantastic. Yeah, Tiger Blood.
I like that I got back just in time for Tiger Blood.
Damn right. I was able to do it the whole goddamn time.
You were rocking and rolling, man.
That's right.
Don't judge us. We had to get pizza.
It's pizza break, y'all.
You guys ain't paying for this, so you
Exactly.
get to deal with the
We're
doorbell.
gonna enjoy some damn pizza, man.
You start paying, we'll get this a little tighter here. I'm just saying we're open.
Yeah, every donation made to Dropping That Culture with JD AJ goes back into the show to make sure we make a better show for you.
And to make sure that we don't take pizza breaks.
And make sure we don't take pizza breaks.
Or at least not let you know we're taking them.
Exactly.
All right, so I think it should be Dropping That News.
Dropping That News. Be honest with you, not really that much has happened in the last few days, really, since we last had the edition of Dropping That News. Most of the entertainment industry has been quiet, mainly because of Christmas and all the good stuff.
Nobody's doing shit right now. And I say that as somebody who works behind the scenes. Nobody's calling, nothing's going on, because this is the slow time.
Yeah, not really. This is this is the dead time in Hollywood. Now, around January, when the shit starts popping off again and pilot season hits up, it's going to be all over the place.
Between pilot season and awards season, which actually hits in January, Golden Globes, Emmys, all that. Actually, not Emmys, the Golden Globes, go into Oscars, and you got iHeartRadio, you got the Grammys. It's going to be nuts. But I will say, this week, right now, between Christmas and New Year's, is my favorite time in LA. Because you can get wherever the hell you need to go in the amount of time it should take.
Exactly.
Instead of the 2 to 3 times as long as it normally takes.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, it's actually been pretty quiet. Like I said, the main things that's really been happening right now is, like I said, the return of Eddie Murphy to SNL. And actually, one thing we can talk about that in terms of that is Bill Cosby's response to it.
I'm sorry, I thought his response was, I'm in prison, I can't waste my phone call.
Yeah, but during Eddie's monologue, he made the comment basically saying that, he hasn't been back in 30 plus years. And because of the fact he has, so many things have changed for him, especially him having 10 children now. And, 10 children and 1 grandchild.
It's expensive.
Exactly. Which he says in the monologue. Yeah, it is. That's why he's back and doing movies, because that is expensive.
You gotta pay for something.
But he said the whole dichotomy of if he went back 30 plus years and said to himself, would I eventually be this boring staying home dad and Bill Cosby would be in jail? He said, even I would have took that bet. But then he did. But then the kicker was he did the Bill Cosby impression. Now who is America's dad now?
That's right, because they've been doing Daddy Daycare.
Exactly. And apparently Bill Cosby's representative, PR representative, did not, or I think either lawyer or PR representative, did not appreciate that. And it went so far as to call Eddie a Hollywood slave.
Well, he gets paid to say shit like that.
Exactly. And he says by
a convicted rapist.
Now, exactly. He goes on this little diatribe on Instagram, and then he ends it with maybe we should get together, have a meeting of the minds to discuss how this affects black men. You just insulted Eddie Murphy. I'm not gonna sit down with you and have a talk with you.
Well, you have anything to say? You're still on Bill Cosby's side.
Exactly.
And look, here's the thing, to be honest, because we talked about this long before all that happened.
Yeah.
As a stand-up,
yeah,
the man was a genius. He was ahead of his time. He was freaking amazing.
Yes.
I used to sit around memorizing Bill Cosby stand-up acts when I was 7, 8 years old, because the shit was funny and I loved it and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But he's a monster.
Yeah.
Shit, proven in court.
Mm-hmm.
What is it like? he's got more women coming out against him than Tiger ever had coming out on him.
That is true.
And the big difference was Tigers were all willing.
And also, and another big difference was the fact that he went on a little deposition stating that he did do what the fuck he did.
Yeah, he admitted it too. It's not even a question.
So sorry.
It's not the OJ tapes where you go, oh my God, is it or isn't it? It's straight up, no questions. Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, and he really owes nothing to Bill. Bill's contributions did open doors for other African American comedians. However, he's always been very unfair to Eddie Murphy.
I was going to say, the only thing that Eddie owes Bill Cosby is the bit in Raw where he's making fun of Bill Cosby calling up and talking shit.
Phil Florin.
He owes him for that 5 minutes.
Yeah, but
because he gave him some great stuff to do. His Bill impression and his Richard.
But the best thing, like I said, the whole thing about that whole little bit is the fact that yes, Bill would contact Eddie and say, "Hey, you're not doing your stuff right. You need to do it more like me." And like I said, the kicker was on the Comedians and Cars Getting Coffee, where he said, "Look, I'm going to be in Atlantic City in this such time. You need to come see me and see how it's done." Like, and then even Seinfeld was a part like, "Who the hell are you to tell this guy how to do his work?"
Yep.
Exactly. So,
well, it's funny too because if you watch, I think it was Standing Up. There's a documentary that was about Seinfeld when he was putting together his first stand-up special after the show.
mm-hmm.
So when it has a whole bunch of time with like Orny Adams,
mm-hmm.
He's actually talking with, I can't remember who he's talking with. He's talking with another stand-up,
Mm-hmm.
and they're discussing how Bill Cosby was such a huge influence on them. Again, this is like way before all the dark side of Bill and everything really became known and came out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of amazing to hear that he would have that much of a reversal to that side. Because like I said, the only stuff I'd ever heard him say about Bill Cosby was, what an amazing performer and what a talented writer and
mm-hmm.
comedian he was. So.
Yeah, but it's sad.
When you cross a line, you cross a line.
It's sad when it gets that way. And also, since we got that out of the way, the other big thing that's happening in Hollywood, the release of Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker.
Yay!
Yeah.
Mandalorian, all the way.
Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, I've seen Rise of Skywalker, and unfortunately, I did not like it. A lot of people, it's another one of those divisive movies. In my opinion, when a movie like that is divisive, it's not good. Like, it's either one way or another. Either you absolutely hate it or you absolutely love it. Most people like in between, and because of the fact people are in between, I say it's bad.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Who loves it?
It's some people
who work for Disney?
No, it's some people actually. Oh my god, it's so good.
I have not heard a single positive review.
And it was like, well, it's better than Last Jedi. That's not really saying much. Because Last Jedi was trash.
It's better than The Phantom Menace. There's no
also,
Jar Jar.
Also trash. Well, okay, I'll give you that. There is no Jar Jar.
That's literally a god.
Thank fucking God. But my thing is this. I'm not going to give away, because it's still in theaters and I don't want to give any spoilers out. So my thing is with this movie, it was too much. You know what I'm saying? They're trying to wrap up too much shit. And they're basically just getting lost. The special effects were just like overwhelming, and they were basically losing the story to the special effects. Yeah. And when they would try to get to the story points, it was like some stupid shit that the fact that I was sitting in the theater and I could predict it, I was like, I don't like this. I don't like being able to predict shit.
Too formulaic.
Yeah, like, oh my god. Okay, so this is going, oh god. Oh, really? Really?
Well, to be fair, it's cheaper to get a first year, film student to write than pay for.
God. Apparently they did, man, because fucking this shit was garbage, bro. And I'm sitting there, like, even there's a couple times, and it's very rare that I do this. There's a couple times I watched and I was like, get the fuck out of here. Watching the movie. If I do that,
it's pretty bad.
It's fucking awful. Like, get the I stopped myself from saying, I'm like, get the I should stop myself because I was in the movie by myself. I was there by myself, but there's a bunch of people in there. But I didn't want to just buzz like, get the fuck out of here. But like at the same time, when I was doing that, a bunch of people were laughing at a particular scene. I was like, well, I was right, but fucking I don't want. I don't
want to add to it.
Exactly, but in my opinion, no, it's not worth it. Wait for Netflix or some shit like that.
Wait for it to be uploaded free on YouTube.
Or Disney Plus or some shit like that, man.
Actually, Disney Plus, that's the way to go.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, but yeah, I'm not gelling with Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. However, Mandalorian is still on fire. And the last episode, which came out like a couple days before this shit came out, was fucking great. It left because it's the first one that's actually been left on a cliffhanger. So the next one is supposed to be coming out tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. And then
I know what you're doing while you're at work.
Exactly. I wish I could. Well, actually, I wish I could, but they're iffy about that.
Yeah, they watch too closely.
Yeah, exactly. But my thing is this, like, freaking, like, I'm definitely know I'm watching it when I get home, and like I say, it's the season finale. So, and like the popularity of the show, obviously, there's gonna be a fucking season 2. I just want to see how they set it up. So I'm like I said, I'm loving the Mandalorian. Boo-hoo on the fucking Rise of Skywalker. I'm sorry.
Oh, and then in the merchandising side, they've announced they're going to start offering a 11-inch Baby Yoda plushie. So even though they kind of sort of started to lean into Jar Jar Binks, they didn't go full Jababa or whatever the hell it was that guy said. I don't remember. all his Rasta shit.
I've tried.
They
I
kept it.
I tried to block out Jar Jar.
They kept it just this side of Ewoks, so thank God.
Whatever. Yeah. All right, but that's basically it. So that's basically dropping that news. Now, what we're gonna do, ladies and gentlemen, is we're gonna start getting into the crux of what we're here for. We did a poll a couple weeks back before we announced that we were gonna do like maybe one more show for the year, and we thought it'd be cool to end it off with a Bond movie.
Yep.
So we did a poll on the Belserverse Facebook page and the Dropping That Culture page, and we got some good votes in, and we put in a couple different choices of Bond movies from different eras, different guys, and the overwhelming winner was Skyfall.
One of my favorites.
Me too. I love Skyfall, especially when it first came out. I was in the theater. I saw it at least 3 times in the theater.
Do you know my favorite part about tonight's episode?
What's up?
You know my favorite part. You get to explain why Timothy Dalton is your favorite Bond.
You know what? I was gonna start with I was gonna start with a little history of Bond, and then we're gonna get into that. So let's start with just a little bit of history of Bond. So James Bond was introduced. Well, James Bond was introduced in 1953 by Sir Ian Fleming in the novel Casino Royale. Now, the actual name James Bond came from an actual ornithologist named James Bond, who had a book called Birds of the West Indies, which apparently Ian Fleming was an avid bird watcher. Mm-hmm. And when he got the name of James Bond, he wanted it to be the dullest, lamest name possible, excuse me, to counteract basically all the stuff that's going around him. Like all these crazy adventures and all this stuff, and this guy with this lame ass name, James Bond, which is not lame anymore.
Yeah, not even kind of.
Exactly. And in terms of like Bond himself, a lot of the mannerisms of Bond were based on Sir Ian Fleming in terms of his like tastes in food, tastes in drinks, tastes in women, his lifestyle. That is more or less Ian Fleming.
Well, so the actual impetus, the idea behind it, there was, because if I remember correctly, Ian Fleming actually worked, I can't remember if it was Special Branch or what they call it, but he worked in clandestine operations for the British during World War II.
Yes, he did.
And there was actually an operative they had who was spending time, if I remember right, he was in Morocco, it was either Morocco or, no, it was Monte Carlo for a little bit.
Yeah.
Then he was in the States, he was in Canada, he was trying to get us to come into the war. This is like 1940, 1941 before we joined. Mm-hmm. And that was apparently a big part of the idea. Now, the character of M was always originally in his mind leaning more towards women because there were women in that service that were doing a lot of badass kind of stuff. But that's where a lot of the idea of the international man of mystery comes from, is because he was meant to be going in and out of these different places, dealing with everything from warlords to corrupt officials and anything and everything in between during the time we were fighting the Nazis. So it was a natural progression in the 50s as everyone kind of rolled over to worrying about the communists, to have him fighting communism for the first part of the Bond history, the Bond legacy.
Yeah. So that began a wonderful series of books, and the books actually are part of my reasoning for Timothy Dalton, which I'm gonna get into in a little bit. But yeah, the large series of books, which obviously became a very popular film series when it was taken over by producers Albert Broccoli and Harry Saltzman, starting with Dr. No, and is now up to 25 movies plus, with No Time to Die coming out this next coming year. Now,
which I'm completely on board with.
Me too.
I'm stoked to see how this goes.
And Mr. Craig has officially announced that this will be his very last James Bond film. And like I said, in terms of time span as James Bond, he is the longest serving James Bond with 14 years. Started in 2006.
Arguably the best.
Yeah, arguably. Yeah. Now,
I almost got you to agree.
Yeah. I said arguably.
I know. I said
I'm gonna give my reason for why I actually kind of agree with that. But in terms of the actual character itself, six actors have officially played James Bond. But the very first live action portrayal of James Bond was actually done on CBS. It was a show called Climax, and what they would do is they would turn theater plays and like novels into like teleplays, and one of which was Casino Royale. And they basically did the whole thing with him in Morocco and all the good stuff, and they had like Peter Lorre as the chief.
Yeah.
It was just nice. But James Bond in that particular teleplay was played by an American actor named Barry Nelson.
Pretty sure it was the last time.
Yeah, an American played James Bond, and his name was Card Sense Jimmy Bond.
And what's crazy is there's people who are less upset about the one American Bond than were upset by the idea of Idris Elba.
Yeah.
Which I never got because he's British. He's British as the day is long.
He's actually more British than most of the people that play James Bond.
I know, and he's fucking amazing as an actor.
Yeah, I think he'd be fantastic.
Whatever.
Yeah, it is what it is. But of the 6 official actors that have played James Bond, they were, of course, Sean Connery, Roger Moore, George Lazenby, Timothy Dalton, which we're going to get into.
Why didn't you say Roger Moore?
I did say Roger Moore.
No, I mean as your favorite. If you're going to go Timothy Dalton, you might as well go Roger Moore.
No, dude, you're real divisive about this. I'm trying to explain it to you. Okay. Well, like I was saying, going back to the Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, and the most recent one, which is the one we're watching right now, Daniel Craig.
Did you say Sean Connery?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Jesus, dude, stop. Okay. But there also been a couple unofficial James Bonds. More accurately, in the movie Casino Royale, the first major screen adaptation of Casino Royale in the 60s was actually a comedy. And the James Bond in that one was David Niven, who was actually one of Ian Fleming's early choices.
Was it titled Casino Royale? I wasn't aware of that one.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, it's called Casino Royale.
I didn't know they did a comedy of that.
You know the song from it was a skit on SNL with Will Forte where he's like a football coach and they have that like
oh yeah.
That's the theme song for Casino Royale.
Really?
Yes.
I had no idea, man.
Yeah, that's the theme song for the Casino.
Man, they have come so far.
Oh my god. But yeah, David Niven was James Bond in that one. And the way they did it actually lends itself to a fan theory that a lot of people have now about James Bond and why the character keeps changing faces. Now, in that movie, David Niven is the original James Bond. He has since retired. He's done all this stuff, saving the world for years and years and years. But because he is retired, they still need a James Bond. So what they do is they take their top agent and give him the name of James Bond, the code name of James Bond, and give him the backstory of James Bond to keep that legend going.
The Dread Pirate Roberts.
More or less, yes, with James Bond. And they have like a bunch of different people playing James Bond in the movie. Peter Sellers plays James Bond. Woody Allen plays James Bond. Woody Allen.
I was just thinking about Peter Sellers. I love Peter Sellers.
Yeah, Peter Sellers is James Bond in that movie.
Woody Allen is James Bond.
And they also have the Chief in there too, and it's Orson Welles.
Okay, that makes sense. That's the first thing I've heard that makes sense about that one for casting.
And the other unofficial Bond, which a lot of people know about because it's actually a pretty decent movie, Never Say Never Again with Sean Connery. That was not done by Eon Productions, who are the people that are in charge of the James Bond movies, the ones that everybody knows. That was done independently by Jack Schwartzman, father of Jason Schwartzman. And that was, like I said, it was a successful movie, but not official.
Yeah.
Okay. But in terms of the actors themselves, both Sean Connery and Roger Moore had the record for the most movies. Both of them did 7, including the unofficial one. In terms of everybody else, George Lazenby did 1. Timothy Dalton did 2. Pierce Brosnan did 4, I believe. And also, so far, Daniel Craig has done 4. This will be 5 coming up.
Which, considering, like we were talking about before, the physicality... There's no way in hell I can do more.
That's part of my notes, too, for the movie. Now, let's get to the pièce de résistance here. Why I'm going to explain to AJ and to the world why I feel Timothy Dalton... I'm going to say Timothy Dalton is my favorite Bond, and I feel he's the best Bond. Okay, now the first criteria in terms of why I feel he's one of the best is his appearance. Now, the actual appearance of James Bond, as it is described in the novels, is a very like Queen type, very lean type face, slick back hair, very cruel in the face and whatnot. And actually, I have right here an artist rendering based on what Ian Fleming thinks James Bond looks like, based on his description in the book. Now, officially, he actually says it in the novels too that he based the look. He keeps referring to James Bond as a cruel version of an actor named Hoagie Carmichael. Now,
Okay.
I have a picture of Hoagie Carmichael here. That's not Hoagie Carmichael. But I have a picture of Hoagie Carmichael. You can see that?
It's not that far off.
Exactly. And you see that? Timothy Dalton.
Look, if we're going purely on aesthetics, you can argue that all day long, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's one. I said it's one criteria.
Okay.
This is one. Two. Excuse me. Sorry about that, folks. Two. In terms of the portrayal. Now, like I said, I read the novels, the original novels by Ian Fleming. Most people, in terms of their perception of what James Bond is basically from the movies. Okay, now James Bond in most of the movies, he's very flippant, he's very funny. You know what I'm saying? He does have kind of a devil may care attitude, in particular to his job and whatnot. However, Bond in the novels is not that fun a guy. He's very serious, very cruel in certain instances. And one thing that Timothy Dalton has, and actually Daniel Craig does too, in terms of the portrayal of the character, he's written with having this like underlying like seething anger throughout the entire book. Like he really doesn't like his job, but it's the only thing he's good at. So he's basically dealing with the cards that the fate dealt him. So now even there's one line in I think in the Living Daylights, which is actually a line from the books. Like I think it's like stuff my orders. Like go ahead and tell him I did whatever I did. If he fires me, I'll thank him for it. That's how he feels about that shit. And you can tell throughout Timothy Dalton's run that he was just like fucking just ready to fucking explode. Just like this is the strawberry jam of him. So like yeah, so that and then also another thing, the humor. There are instances of gallows humor in the Bond novels. Not very many. Okay, James Bond is not really a funny guy. That's more of an invention of the Sean Connery years that kind of carried on to all the other actors. And because of that, like I said, like a lot of people were like iffy on Timothy Dalton's performance because of the fact that all they know is the movie performances, and like he's not Sean Connery, he's not as funny as Roger Moore, he's not whatever, and because that's all they know. Right. But like I said, in terms of accuracy of portrayal from the novel to the movie, he gets it better than most. The only one I said in terms of like who gets it closest is Daniel Craig. Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that aggression, that anger, that just underlying like I fucking hate what I'm doing, but it's all I know how to do. That kind of thing. That's the one thing that Daniel Craig and Timothy Dalton do better than most of the other Bonds.
See, when I was coming up, I grew up on Sean Connery. That was my Bond. That was my favorite Bond. That's Goldfinger all the way every day. As I got older and I started having my taste change, learn a little bit more, get a little bit more. I fell in love with Daniel Craig's portrayal, Casino Royale, from the time he explains this is my second kill, he's becoming a 00, that whole thing. And I was fortunate enough to have Tom Mankiewicz, who wrote several Bond films, as a mentor, and he was telling us even before I'd seen that film that this is what him and Mr. Broccoli were always trying to do.
The aggressive
Daniel Craig, yes, in his opinion, and this is somebody who's far more qualified than I am, was the closest, if not the best, that they'd ever gotten to ever doing what they were trying to do on screen. And you got to remember too, the other thing is like going from the novels to screen, right? You got to think censorship in the 70s and 80s. I mean, now in the 90s, well, late 90s, early 2000s, by now, nothing's off limits. Censorship be damned.
Yes.
Right? You can get away with anything. All you're really figuring out when you're putting together a movie like this, what am I looking at for box office rating? Yes. That's literally the only thing that's put up as a block in your way. And the other thing too is what you can get away with in terms of violence and sexual content has shifted wildly from the Sean Connery or the Timothy Dalton years. Yeah. So they're able to be far more accurate in their depictions of violence. And I think the bigger reason why you're not seeing more Daniel Craig in the Bond role is primarily a function of the physicality of how that shifted. Because if you go to the earlier ones, Timothy Dalton, Roger Moore, even Sean Connery, I mean, it's a punch. It's a punch here. It's a punch there. It's maybe a kick. It's shooting. It's not this parkour crazy shit chasing a guy across a bunch of like giant fucking cranes and everything like you have in the first one.
I'm actually going to stop you there on the Timothy Dalton one because the fact that Timothy Dalton was one of the first, if not the first Bond, to do most of his stunts himself. If you look
100%.
at Living Daylights, and I actually watched License to Kill before I came down here, and like there's like a whole truck sequence with like in License to Kill in particular, there's a whole truck sequence where he's like in Mexico on top of like some like semi trucks and shit, and that's all him.
Well, and that's why for me he's above Roger Moore and Sonny Pierce Brosnan.
Oh, especially Roger Moore, like especially in his later years, you can very much. I watched View to a Kill the other night. I was like, that is not him.
It was like the original mumblecore when you watch some of those early Bond films. It's just all talking, right?
Yeah.
And it's not. Look, I understand it's good for what it is, but they had the limitations they had, and that's what they were stuck with. And what you get by the time you get to Skyfall, Casino Royale, really, and Daniel Craig's years, is you have a far more realistic, minimal suspension of disbelief. Like we talked about before, the only time for me where I've sat back for half a second and been like, really, was that scene in Spectre. Yeah. Right. Aside from that, which of course I own all of them because it's freaking awesome. But aside from that, I mean, it's just it's visceral reality. It's a very realistic depiction of people who do this kind of work. And like you were saying, he's constantly got that anger underneath. He's constantly trying to find a way out, and that's what makes this movie great.
And that's why I advocate Timothy Dalton so much, because the fact that was what they were shooting for with his movies too. And you can see it in his movies because, like I said, License to Kill is basically an 80s action movie with James Bond in it because there's very little gadgets. It's mainly like a lot of like punching and shooting and killing and shit like that. And also same thing with Living Daylights. There's not a lot of gadgets in that one either. It's just a lot of him doing the actual work, doing the leg work. And you see him actually on top of vehicles, like reaching over. You see him punching people. You see him all the good shit. Like he was ahead of his time, which is why it was so ironic to me that so many people shit on his performance when in actuality most of the stuff that he was trying to do, they're doing now with Daniel Craig.
See, well, and that's why for me when I rate it, Daniel Craig's at the top because I mean, again, when you're fortunate enough, I'm not trying to say anything other than I just feel really fortunate to talk to the guy who did it. Yes. And he's telling me that, and that's what he was telling Barbara Broccoli. Yes. That's what those conversations, it's like, this is what we were going for. Yes. And not to mention it's fucking fabulous. Yes. I go, okay, well then this has got to be my number one because it's what they were shooting for, and I love it, and I think it's great. Yeah. Number two is Connery because, call it nostalgia. And then Timothy Dalton's right there. Like I said, he's always going to, and here's the thing, the first Bond movie I ever saw, Goldeneye, hated it. I kind of liked it at the time, I hate it now. Not like freaking like, and that's another reason why I like Timothy Dalton so much. He's my first Bond. The first Bond movie I ever saw was License to Kill. Mainly because of the fact he used to come on HBO all the time back in the day. Okay. So that was the first Bond. The first time I was ever prescient or knowledgeable of James Bond. The first Bond movie I actually saw was License to Kill. Okay. All right, and like I said, that's another reason. Like, there's a personal connection there with Timothy Dalton. So. Like I said, I'll always put Timothy Dalton above the rest. It's just me. But like I said, in terms of my list, right after Timothy Dalton is Daniel Craig. I really enjoyed the Daniel Craig series. I love Casino Royale. I saw this shit first time in Iraq. Oh, yeah? Yeah, fucking Haji copy. So fucking, so we watched that shit in our fucking like in our BAS, and I wore that DVD out, bro. I was like, damn, this is good. And then the thing about it is, I missed the beginning. So I didn't know it was a James Bond movie. I was like, this is a dope-ass action movie. Oh, this is a James Bond movie. Is it? Dude, that's funny. First time I saw it, I was in Athens. Really? Went to a movie theater there. And the nice thing is there, they don't dub anything. It's just the fucking subtitles. Yeah. So I just ignored the weird scribblies at the bottom and enjoyed a killer Bond film. Yeah, so I come into it like, I missed the gun barrel shit. So I came right into it like when they're like in the jungle with the rain and shit. With the mongoose, the warlord, with the warlord. This is all my company will guarantee. That scene. That's when I came into it. But then I watched the whole movie. It was like, oh, okay, that's what's up. So this is him in the beginning. That's what's up. Like I was with that shit. All right, so let's go ahead and hop into this movie, people. Let's get into Skyfall. And this night, tonight, don't worry, it's not going to be 3 hours because of commercials. If it's 3 hours, because we just had too much shit to say. More or less. Because we got Blu-ray. Yes. And we're ready to rock and roll. And we're pressing play now. And while we're watching this movie, we got some factoids in terms of the production of the movie now. We got some like little disclaimers here. This is the piracy is a crime. Is it? That's what it says.
It's a
Because you're talking about your Haji copy.
Exactly.
In case you're wondering, it's rated PG-13.
Yeah.
Parental caution.
So the production and developing this movie took about 9. It was delayed for 9 months due to like the delayed sale of MGM at the time. They basically just kept calling the movie Bond 23 because it's the 23rd Bond movie. Right. And then it actually once the production got back on set or whatever, it basically started doing it with the goal of making sure it's in theaters for the 50th anniversary of the Bond franchise, which is what this is in this movie. Now, after a long development, they actually had a couple different names for the title of this movie. They couldn't think of a good title for a long time. The working titles were A Killing Moon, Once Upon a Spy, Silver Bullet, Carte Blanche, and Red Sky at Night. Those were the names.
Red Sky wouldn't have been bad.
Red Sky at Night.
That's too much.
Yeah, so. But actually, funny enough, all the original Ian Fleming stories and novels have been adapted to screen, and their names have been adapted to screen. There's only 4 remaining that have not been adapted yet, but elements of each of those stories have been put into the Bond movies. The ones remaining are Risico, The Property of a Lady, The Hildebrand Rarity, and one called 007 in New York, which is basically just Bond on vacation in New York. So
yeah, I can skip that.
Yeah.
I just have to say here, because that opening shot when he walks in and the light frames just across his eyes,
just like the gun barrel sequence.
Yeah, well, it's an absolutely gorgeous, brilliant shot. Anybody can do it, no matter whether or not you're big budget or low budget. It's simple stuff like that, the stepping into frame, that really adds something extra to it.
Yeah, man. And like I said,
of course, if you can have the $3,000 suit and the $1 million actor.
Yeah, and in terms of the name of the movie, Skyfall, apparently the writers, Neil Purvis and Robert Wade, thought of the title at 2 a.m. They said, and this is a quote, "We needed a haunting place name. It just plucked out of the air, and it turned out to be something that struck a chord with the filmmakers."
Yeah.
And also, this is the only Bond movie where they actually provided the title in the fucking movie itself. Like, the world is not enough.
Yeah.
It was actually Bond's family motto. On Her Majesty's Secret Service really had nothing to do with that kind of shit. So yeah, it's very original in terms of that. And look at this beautiful thing in Turkey. Yeah, and then we got our first shot of Naomi Harris as Eve. That's who she's referred to throughout the movie. Yeah, so you never know. Yeah, like there's another surprise with her. I'm not gonna give it away. You should have seen this movie already, but fucking like I'm not gonna give it away yet.
Yeah, seriously, who the hell hasn't seen this by now?
Exactly. And now, in terms of the meaning and the relevance of the Skyfall Lodge, is basically supposed to be James Bond's Scottish home,
that he grew up in.
Yeah, that he grew up in. And like, actually, funny enough, Bond's Scottish ancestry did not actually get associated with the character until after the first movie came out with Sean Connery.
Yep.
Like Ian Fleming was not actually crazy about the choice of Sean Connery as James Bond.
You can't get away from his accent. It's not English, not even close.
And plus, not only just that, he just thought he was just too big and brutish to be James Bond. That's just it.
That's just because Englishmen are generally small.
Yes, and frail. Then you had this big burly ass Scotsman, coming in trying to play your character.
Which is great with Daniel Craig because he is a big burly guy.
Exactly.
He's English, but he's big and burly.
Yes, he is. But Ian Fleming loved his portrayal so much that he included Bond's ancestry into the book You Only Live Twice. At the end of that book, there's actually a fictional obituary of James Bond's life, and that's when the first mention of James Bond's Scottish ancestry.
Huh.
Yeah, so
it's pretty good.
It's very good, man. I love this stuff. All this stuff here in Turkey with the motorcycle chase. This is actually the second rooftop motorcycle chase ever in the James Bond movie. The first one was Tomorrow Never Dies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with him and with Pierce Brosnan and Michelle Yeoh. So
I try to forget a lot of those.
Yeah, well, I don't mind Tomorrow Never Dies. To be really honest with you, I think it's a good plot with the whole news magnate trying to take over the world through news.
Isn't Tomorrow Never Dies the one where they end up driving the damn ice car?
No, that's Die Another Day.
Die Another Day.
Yeah.
God.
But all these Bond.
GoldenEye is the only one I can watch.
Yeah, there's all these Bond movies. You gotta have either kill, die, or live in the title.
Yeah.
I think we should do a parody called "Live, Kill, or Die."
Wait, isn't that a game? No, it's
Let's fuck, Marry, Kill. That would be a dope movie title too. Fuck, Marry, Kill.
Well, this is like the second movie around this time that had the rooftop chase above the bazaar, because they had what was that? Taken.
That's right.
Taken 2, I think
that
it was,
right.
When they were doing that.
Yeah, it was
rooftop chase.
Yeah, it was Liam Neeson. That's right.
People love this for whatever reason.
Yeah, man, because it looks cool.
It looks pretty cool.
That's really what it is. It looks really cool and fucking like I'm sure it's hella dangerous, but it looks fantastic. Man, cinematically, look at this, man.
It's a kill. Look, here's the thing: when it comes to Bond films, you make it or break it with your opening action sequence.
Yes,
all of them across the board.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why we were talking about before with him doing the kills and Casino Royale. That's a great way to open that up.
Yeah.
This right here, the only thing that surpasses this in my book for an opening sequence in a Bond film is the opening sequence in Spectre.
Okay.
And that's why I'm so frustrated, like we talked about before, about the song, because it brings the mood down. Because this one, like Skyfall, it's operatic, it's huge, it's big. It actually gets you even more tense.
Yes.
Now let me ask you this, because we just saw our third shot at Dame Judi Dench.
Yes.
How did you feel about her 10 years in? Because the thing that was bothering me, the longer it went on, was that we were spending more and more screen time with Judi Dench with each successive show, with each successive film, and not enough of James Bond. And it was to the point where it was really driving me nuts. Like, oh my God, like, a spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen the damn movie, but for crying out loud, when she died at the end, I was conflicted. Instead of feeling bad, I was like, oh, I guess we're going to have to watch her next movie. Like, when the next one comes out, at least it won't be all about her. It'll be about James again.
Well, go keep talking. Pizza.
So, I think what you were going to say was, yeah, you totally agree with me. Judi Dench had way too much screen time. They need to back it off.
Actually, no, I don't agree with you. I actually don't mind Judi Dench's M. Because, like, I've seen the other M's and their performances and whatnot, and mostly they just come in, give Bond shit for his lifestyle.
Well, no, you're misunderstanding me. I didn't mind her as M. I felt like we were getting too much of M. Her. I actually liked her in that casting, in that role. I thought it was a great kind of a new way to go. You hadn't really seen that before. She's a hell of an amazing actor.
Of course.
In fact, did you ever see Notes on a Scandal?
Yes.
Dude, fucking amazing acting in that film. Yeah. I was just, like I said, when I watched James Bond, you didn't call the movie M. If you're going to call it M, then I'll know what I'm in for. That's all I'm saying.
Right. All right, so in the books, Ian Fleming gave James Bond a real-life ancestry to the Bonds of Peckham. The real-life Bond motto, which is actually, is based on a real family, is Orbis non sufficient, which is the world is not enough.
Which is pretty good.
And the first mention of that was actually in the novel on Her Majesty's Secret Service when Bond was like going undercover as a genealogist. And part of that was actually them going into Bond's ancestry. And then of course they named the name of the movie in 1999. And also they have a real life coat of arms for the Bond family. And but in terms of like why they chose to use Skyfall and the Bond family ancestry for this movie is to give it some emotional context to be revealed throughout the movie. That's why they did it. Now, Daniel Craig at this time actually said in Rolling Stone that this was going to be his last Bond movie. But like I said, it's 2 movies later. He's still doing it.
Well, the amount of money they're backing up in a Brinks truck to him. Because like I said, I mean, the response to this for a reboot, I don't know if they ever seen anything like it, except for maybe the Chris Nolan Batmans.
Maybe. And actually getting to that. The Chris Nolan Batmans were actually a huge inspiration for this movie. I'm going to get to that a little bit later. But Daniel Craig...
Skyfall specifically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, Daniel Craig said in Rolling Stone that he's basically been trying to get out of being James Bond from the moment he got into it, but they won't let me go. And like I said, they keep backing up their money to him, man. But he's been injured pretty much throughout every single Bond movie. He's been like gravely injured in every single Bond movie. Not gravely, but he has been sufficiently injured. I think in this one, like he cut off one of his like fingertips got cut off.
Yeah, I can believe that with these stunts, man.
Yeah, so yeah, man, it's pretty.
And the one thing that I'm just noticing here is he's running across the Caterpillar tractor.
Yeah.
Did you see how they added the walkway on top so he'd have something to balance on? Yeah. I mean, it's still a hell of an amazing stunt.
But I still love the fact that when he finally got into the train, he had to straighten stuff out. Yeah. Actually, that didn't start to the Pierce Brosnan movies. Remember, because he would like do some like fancy shit, and then he would like straighten his tie.
Yeah.
So that's a nice little nuance there. And also Daniel Craig was actually worried about the delays that they had for this movie because of the fact he was actually eager to get back into shape because of the fact he was 43 at the time that they were doing this. And he felt he was getting too old to cope with the extreme physical demands of playing James Bond.
Well, here he is at 50.
Exactly. So, and then, like I said, the opening sequence here in Istanbul, Turkey, took about 2 months to film, 3 months of rehearsals, 4 months of preparation, 200 crew members from England, and another 200 of local Turkish crew to produce basically just 12 to 14 minutes of fucking screen time.
Amazing screen time.
Oh man, I love this stunt here when they both go under, man, and then all they're doing is fighting over some damn cold card or microchip.
MacGuffin.
Yeah, the MacGuffin. They're fighting over the MacGuffin. Yeah, man. And actually, Daniel Craig performed many of his own stunts throughout this movie, including this fight that's happening on the train, which was actually on an actual train going at 50 kilometers per hour.
It'd probably be easier to name the stunts he didn't do.
Yeah. And apparently Robert Broccoli said basically they were in Turkey for this train sequence, and she said her heart was in her mouth the whole time. Daniel and the actor here were fighting.
That's a lot of money on top of a train.
Daniel and the actor here were fighting on the top of a moving train, and the moves that they were doing were just heart-stopping. Daniel's the reason the action works so well as it does because he sells it, he's up there, and I think the audiences know that. So...
And this is where you realize...
I love this scene here where he's like, take the shot. Like,
you realize how important optics are on your rifle?
Yeah. And then, but you also see the how cold-blooded M can be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's that job.
That is that job. But at the same time, like...
He agreed to it, so did she.
Yeah, but you basically about to take out your best agent. Which you know is your best agent. Yeah, and she's like, I don't have a shot. Take the shot. Take the shot.
Mm-hmm.
Take the bloody shot. And he's hearing it the whole time.
He's listening to the whole conversation.
The bloody shot. Fire. Damn.
Take the second shot.
Yeah, but
like, don't just watch him drop. Shoot the other guy.
She's so rattled that she did that though. That
she should have taken the second shot.
And I love the silence here. And
she does have a nice watch.
I know, but I love the silence here. And then agent down.
They did hold the moment.
Yeah, and then, you know what I'm saying, I love how it's so silent and all you hear is the rain dropping. And the water from the waterfall.
And then it goes into one of the best opening title sequences ever.
Oh my God, man. Look at that. Just cold. And Bond's body floating in this river, going God knows where.
Over the waterfall.
And then right into our opening sequence. With Adele's Skyfall, the first Bond movie to ever win the Academy Award for Best Original Song. Many have been nominated. Yeah, many have been nominated. I believe the one that got the closest before this was Duran Duran's the Duran Duran song from View to a Kill. That was like, and actually that is still to this day, like I think the only one that went to number one. Duran Duran's Into the Fire, what the fuck that shit is. The fatal kiss is what we need. Duh, duh. It's Into the Fire. And we got our classic James Bond sequence.
So the thing that makes this great, because it's one of the things we talked about 100 times before.
Yeah.
Opening title sequence is your opportunity to set the table.
Yeah.
What you're going to be watching for the rest of the film.
Yeah, basically, like most of the title sequences have elements of the film in them.
Well, when you watch most of the Bond films specifically, the number one thing you generally end up running into and saying is there's obviously images, there's a classic one of looking down the gun barrel, the shot, that whole thing. Mm-hmm. But it's usually different images, basically of silhouettes of women, usually naked women or something like that. Mm-hmm. What you get with this one, even from the way it starts, where you have the hand pulling, the woman's hand pulling in back down into the depths. Mm-hmm. That right there, it's telegraphing to the audience and showing you, okay, so this is one of those things where he was almost out, but as Corleone said, they pulled me back in. and then it takes him in deep, and now you're getting into even the shadow play that you have right here, where he's shooting his own shadows back and forth.
And you see the shadow that looks like the
Javier. Exactly. It's setting up for you and giving you the indication that this is as much an internal struggle as it's going to be. This is the artistic, deep undertones.
And also another instance of foreshadowing that we just missed, actually. When Judi Dench's name came up, it was against the gravestone.
Exactly.
So kind of foreshadowing her fate in this movie.
I mean, it's seriously, it's one of the most well thought out, well executed setups. And then even here with the fire burning, right? Because his whole, it's his image essentially that's burning in the background there. And you have the Chinese dragons,
which will be playing
and again, with this powerful operatic song that's just pushing and driving this forward. And the other thing that's got to be wonderful for them, because again, they're being British and it being a British thing. Yeah. You have a British singer who's winning you the Academy Award.
Adele, with
this amazing.
And she was actually pregnant when she did sequence. This. Which is why her voice is not usually this deep. Yeah, and it's mainly because she was pregnant, and there's a hormonal thing happening. But look at this stuff, man. The kaleidoscope effect.
It's absolutely amazing. You have, because you have the stabbings, you have the shootings, and all that's going on, and even going back, and then Bond into his own grave.
Skyfall.
Yeah, I mean that's just it's amazing stuff.
And you stand tall. Music by Thomas Newman, who took over for longtime Bond composer David Arnold, and he kept that sound though, man. That Bond sound, which was actually established by the late John Barry.
Well, and it's what keeps this fantastic, is that, and again with the Daniel Craig years overall, you still maintain that kernel of the through line of the history and the origin, without letting it fall into Moonraker or any of those other territories where they kind of went a little bit far afield. I mean, even this right here, where you have essentially, it looks like comets of blood coming crashing down on the house. That's just
to the powerful ending. And then, funny enough, factoid I found out, in the 50 years of Bond movies, this is only the second time that Bond's ever been shot.
Oh shit! Yeah, you're right.
The only time he was shot before that was actually in Thunderball. He got shot like in the calf or something.
Yeah, and it wasn't anything.
Yeah, so he was still, he was getting chased through the Junkanoo. Whatever the carnival they had down in Jamaica and shit.
That was pretty crazy.
Yeah, man. And like I said, we see Em alone in the office, and she's gonna get our first little indication of the writing, the actual font here. That's actually from the You Only Live Twice novel. It's actually just like that. The whole thing with Commander Bond and all that shit.
And then I love this thing they do with the little English bulldog.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that's really great that I think gets lost on a lot of people, because it's part of the filmmaker's language. When Bond is shot, and again when she's sitting there writing the obituary, it's raining.
Yes.
Which, I mean, that's very, very emotionally poignant and fantastic.
And also this scene we're about to see now with M going to go and see Gareth Mallory. This is the first time that two people that have played M are actually in the same scene together. And kind of giving away, but like Gareth Mallory, Ralph Fiennes, will be M's successor as this movie progresses.
Which is fantastic casting.
And also another thing is Ralph Fiennes is the latest of many actors from the Avengers franchise that have actually become members of the Bond family. And by the Avengers, I don't mean the Marvel supergroup. I actually mean the British television show from the 60s. Yeah. With basically two-person spy team.
I can't imagine Mark Ruffalo on the show.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Nothing against Mark, but I mean, where's he going to be?
Yeah, I do love this. Like, he was like, are you firing me? We're calling this retirement planning. Like, you'll retire, you get all your benefits, you'll be, made
whatever, lord or whatever. A lady, I guess, right?
Yeah, but you're done. Basically, you're done. You are
basically get out.
Yeah, you're done here.
Thanks anyway.
You fucked up pretty hard here. You fucked up pretty hard here this time, man. And actually, at this point, this is the first of the Daniel Craig movies that's actually not a follow-up to a previous movie. Yeah. Because remember the last two movies before this, Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace.
Which is my least favorite of all those that he's done so far. It was so rushed.
Yes, it was. And it felt very bland in terms of the story because it wasn't as rich.
Well, it didn't have a full 3-act structure in the same way. It basically was an extended third act from Casino Royale.
True. And but like I said, it's not. But they wanted to They wanted to give the possibility that Quantum will show up again, but they pretty much eradicated that with Spectre, letting them know that Quantum is actually a part of Spectre, more or less, and that every Bond feeling that he's been facing since
is all connected.
Has all been fucking, from Spectre. And I do love this scene here where she's like, like it's very contemplative of him, and she has a lot of those moments. And
well, again, this is the stuff that I actually like about Judi Dench, is the way she can play these scenes, these small scenes, and put so much like heart and emotion behind it.
Yeah, and actually going back to the little dog on her desk is actually these figurines are actually created by the Royal Dalton during World War II, and it's basically a sign of patriotism.
They're expensive as shit too.
Yeah.
I looked to get one for a friend a while back.
Yeah,
they're cool though. I like them.
And I love this scene here where we're about to see where she's like being like, she gets her first indication of that somebody's playing games with her, and she goes back to MIC. Yeah, like
go back to headquarters.
Yeah, some like computer leaking. Like come find out it's actually coming from her office,
terminal,
her computer.
Somebody's hacked directly into her.
Yeah, like who can do this? Like I'm the head of fucking Secret Service in Britain.
Yeah, nobody should be able to get on my computer. And
it's coming directly from your office, mum. I love the mum.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things in the Britishisms I never quite got behind. It feels weird to me to call anyone but my mom.
Yeah.
Mom.
I love this shit here, like fucking remember your sins. Yeah, with the fucking Mexican
sugar skull.
Think of your sins. Yeah, think of your sins. And this is a great shot coming up too of MI6 exploding. Yeah. Now, like I say, we see the MI6 building here out on the outside. Now, how they shot this, on the actual day, so on the actual day, so they were actually given permission to do a few pyrotechnics outside, but the actual main explosion right here is a model.
Yeah, well, it's got to be.
It's a model.
MI6 doesn't believe it.
But yeah, but they had some pyrotechnics on there just to give them something to react to. But yeah, on the actual day it was just puppets. And then here we actually see Bond he's
doing well.
Actually having sex on screen for the first time. It was very quick, but yeah, he actually shows Bond having sex for the first time.
He was doing well. He's on an island. He's drinking. He's got himself a girl.
Real bad chick too.
Better than being flushed down a waterfall.
Exactly.
In Turkey.
Yeah, but he's basically out of it because he's like listless, obviously, and he's still.
Well, I mean, they get to this a little bit later, but his body's got to be just so mangled.
Oh my god!
From getting shot, from all the fighting. I mean,
falling down a waterfall.
Well, I think this is probably what you were leaning into before about the influence of Dark Knight, or actually it'd be Dark Knight Rises, I guess, by that point, is the physical toll that all this action would actually take on a person.
Actually, I'm going to get to that.
Right.
So this movie was influenced by, and actually according to Sam Mendes, he actually confirmed this is influenced by the Dark Knight trilogy. Or particularly Batman Begins and Dark Knight. And thing about it is there's actually a recurring dialogue throughout the movie of permission to die in terms of Dark Knight Rises and shit. And then the end shot, which we saw in the beginning of the DVD of James Bond standing on a building looking over London with the flag, really evoked Batman. Now, Sam Mendes said, in terms of what Nolan achieved, especially with The Dark Knight, the second movie, what he achieved was something exceptional. It was a game changer for everybody. What Nolan proved was that you can make a huge movie that's thrilling and entertaining and has a lot to say about the world we live in, even if, in the case of The Dark Knight, it's not set in our world. That did help give me the confidence to take this movie in directions that without The Dark Knight might not have been possible. And Nolan himself has actually stated that the classic Bond movies were influenced on the Dark Knight trilogy. So
it's a circle.
It's a never-ending circle, baby.
Wait, so let me ask you though on this. Yeah. So we just have the scene right there where he was drinking with the Scorpion.
Yes.
Is that real or was that CGI? Do you know?
It doesn't really specify.
I never looked that one up.
It didn't really specify.
It looks pretty real. I mean, if it's CGI, it's fantastic. But I think you could do that as a real thing.
And one thing I love here is they actually got CNN. They got an actual cameo from Wolf Blitzer.
The best work he's done this whole life.
Yeah, basically. And also in terms of the secrecy of the script, several notable cast members who actually played the smaller parts of the movie never received a full script. Basically just received what they work on. Basically, the whole secrecy protocols for this production was basically so tight that they actually reflected real life espionage.
As they should have.
Yeah, like fucking they didn't want nobody to know nothing about this, man. I love this shot here where she's standing
with all the coffins,
all these damn graves draped over. You know what I'm saying? With the draped with the Union Jack. And actually, Dame Judi Dench has more screen time in this movie than Desmond Llewellyn had in all the movies he did as Q.
That's what I was saying before.
Yeah.
About screen time.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things I would have liked, instead of maybe as many mournful shots of Judi Dench, would have been figuring out how the hell did he end up making it from the bottom of a waterfall to some, awesome beach somewhere, shacked up with some chick, drinking himself to death. Now, this house that we're actually seeing here, Emma's being escorted into a home here in London. It was supposed to be her home. This is actually the real-life home of John Barry. Yeah, so... He has a very lovely home.
Yes, he did. And like I said, John Barry, who passed away.
Yeah.
And, he was the main composer of most of the Bond movies from the 60s and 70s and 80s. I love this James Bond, The Shadows. Like, where have you been? Enjoying death. James Bond reporting for duty. Now, in terms of like this movie, she's actually Dame Judi Dench was actually 77 at the time of this movie. This is actually the 7th time she's played Bond, and this is her largest on-screen appearance as Bond. And this is the most significant. Did I say Bond?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Her largest on-screen performance is M. Excuse me.
Thank you. Bond.
Shut up. And this is her most significant Bond movie in terms of the exploration between the relationship between M and Bond.
Yeah.
Now, Barbara Broccoli said the same thing. They explores the relationship more than any of the 22 movies previous. They wanted to really mind the relationship between Bond and M because it's the most significant relationship he has in his life.
For sure.
Yeah, M is the only person that represents authority in him. And then you got 2 extraordinary actors. And we just thought, let's go all the way. And it worked extremely well. It was a very emotional story. And it is a very emotional story throughout this movie.
And not only is she an authority representative to him, but there's a maternal thing there, too. It's his only, for lack of a better term, it's his only organic or real relationship. Everything else, every woman that he hooks up with, every source that he exploits, everybody there's something on. But for whatever reason, there's this maternal attraction between the two of them where it's real.
Funny enough, she actually Dame Judi Dench actually went on the Graham Norton show to promote this movie when it came out, and she revealed that for years she's actually had a James Bond ringtone.
That's cool.
Like she had somebody.
I hope that's real.
No, she actually what she did. She had somebody call her while she was on the show, and it did it, and apparently it was a recurring joke throughout the whole movie that her annoying has ringtone.
Nice.
Yeah. And actually, the main reason she actually chose to be M in the first place is because of the fact of her late husband.
Really?
Who was a huge fan of the Bond movies.
Honestly, now that we're talking about it, I know there's different seasons, but I've never met anybody who doesn't like at least one Bond film.
Yeah, me either.
I think it's one of those ones it's a weird, great crossover. And it's because at the end, even though like we talked about before, how Daniel Craig and Sean Connery have that bastard quality, right? They can be making out with or just banging some girl, and then they see in the shadows somebody coming with a gun, they turn her so she gets shot instead of them, and then the next scene you still like them somehow. Yeah. Even with that aside, there's something that it's attractive about the fact that he's a man on a mission, and he's got, well, you know what, to go with Omar Little, right? A man's got to have a code.
Yes.
James Bond has a very simple code everybody can understand. He will do whatever it takes for his people and his country. Yeah. And that's universal.
Yeah. And and then one thing we didn't mention was like the scene we just saw here with Bond in M's house. This is actually the second time he broke into her house.
Oh yeah.
Because he broke into a house in Casino Royale, the first movie.
Yeah.
And she even said like, "Fucking don't ever break into my home again." I said, "Fuck that, I'm doing it again."
Don't ever do it. Well, actually, I think is if you break in again or something, she'll shoot him.
Yeah.
And so he waited till after she got him shot that he broke in again, which is kind of a funny little ironic thing.
And actually, this is the first time where they actually reveal M's name, full name in the movie. If you actually look at the box towards the end when Bond gets M's box, you can see her name on there, Olivia Mansfield. Yeah, but it's not the first time that M's name has been mentioned. Actually, they mentioned it in the Spy Who Loved Me. During there's like the little sequence where they're like in the pyramid, the impromptu base or whatever, with General Gogol and all those people. General Gogol refers to M as Miles.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then also, this is not the first time that we see M's home. The first time you see it was actually on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and that was a fucking mansion.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
And a little more realistic.
And they actually referred to his past Navy accomplishments by referring to him as the Admiral.
I mean, I guess that would make sense. Again, going to the roots, World War II.
Yeah.
You know, the whole special branch idea of things. Because I think MI6 was actually created in World War II.
Yeah. And actually, apparently in the novel, they actually give his full name in the novel. In particular, the novel of The Man with the Golden Gun. Miles Misservy. That was the original M's name, Bernard Lee. And like I said, Judi Dench herself is the fourth actor to play M. After Bernard Lee, Robert Brown was during the Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton years was Robert Brown, and then Judi Dench, and now Ray Fiennes is M.
Oh yeah.
So 4 people have played M.
There's less M's than there's been Bonds.
Exactly.
But then again, all you have to do is sit behind a desk when you're M.
Same thing with Q. Same thing with Q. There's been 3 official Qs. Desmond Llewellyn, who was the longest serving Q, and then very briefly John Cleese, and now Ben. I think his name is Wishaw. Ben Wishaw. Yeah, and I love this. Oh, I love this scene here
with the psychologist
doing the word association thing. Mm-hmm. I love the answers he gives, like murder, occupation, like moon, dance, M, bitch. I know you watching. M, bitch.
You shot me. I'm gonna say some shit.
Yeah, heart target.
At least I came back.
And then how he gets quiet. Skyfall. Done. AJ just walked away real quick, but like I said, folks, he's just getting a drink real quick. But like, shut up. Like I said, this is a fantastic scene. It's playing out right now, and
well, we can't hear it because if we listen to it, then we're gonna get pulled off of
yes
iTunes. Actually, we're on YouTube now. Oh yeah, by the way, we're on YouTube.
We are?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, so what?
Yeah, we're on YouTube now.
But it's still radio.
There's a lot of stuff like that on YouTube.
You know what? Give it time. You'll get it with video.
Listen to us on YouTube too, people.
Then you can watch us eat pizza.
Yeah. He just walks away.
Yeah.
Done.
No, it's solid right there.
Yes, sir. So great. Like I said, I was actually kind of iffy on Daniel Craig initially, mainly because
everyone was.
No, but mainly because of the fact I felt he mumbled too much.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sometimes
that's different because everybody hated him for the look. Like they're all like, he looks too much like a Russian. He should be the guy that they're fighting because he's blonde.
I got the look straight away. It's basically like if you took a Marine and turned him into James Bond. That's basically what I saw.
Which is what James Bond's kind of supposed to be. Exactly.
So I didn't mind that at all. But like I said, the mumble shit, like certain times it was hard to understand him, particularly in Casino Royale when he's like, he's supposed to be like, what he like was with those German guys or whatever in the casino. And he's trying to say Guten Abend, but I couldn't understand what the fuck he said. I actually had to put
did you rewind it? Did closed caption?
Closed caption. I just what said Guten Abend? Okay, that's all I heard. And I love that he's so hardcore that he picked some shrapnel out of his goddamn shoulder with a knife, and you get like, check this out.
Hey, see if you can figure out what's up with this, because that's what I got shot with. Yeah. Give it to M.
Yeah. And I love this scene here where it's like, M's giving him another shot after this physical and whatnot. Not knowing that he failed everything. No, not knowing that he failed everything. She just basically just giving him another shot because she believes in him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And we see Eve again, Naomi Harris. Beautiful. Naomi Harris.
Coming over to say, I'm sorry I shot you.
Yeah.
I guess I should be the new M and sit behind a desk and make hard decisions.
I believe you should.
Yeah, some people are not built for trigger time.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There's another scene here coming up where Naomi Harris actually shaves Daniel Craig getting that mustache, getting that
getting that beard off,
and
the English don't like facial hair.
Yeah, she used a real razor blade, which is actually unusual for a movie.
Yeah, they usually fake it.
Yeah, but she used a real one. She actually spent 6 weeks with a professional barber learning how to do it properly, and she did it on actually other members of the crew.
Practice.
Yeah, so yeah, just actually her shaving Daniel Craig.
I mean, it makes it more realistic. You know, I like stuff like that. It's not that dangerous if you actually had some training. And
funny enough, I had never seen her in anything before, but then I watched back. She's a ninja assassin.
I don't think I know that. Ninja assassin?
It's one of those like Netflix movies where it's
okay.
But yeah, she's like she plays a cop and ninja assassin. And actually, she's playing a cop in a movie out right now called Black and Blue.
Hey.
Yeah.
I love this whole thing about how the Dalton figurine survived the explosion.
Exactly.
It killed like 9 people, but it's like, nope, the damn dog survived.
The damn porcelain dog survived.
You know, actually, speaking of like going back and watching stuff people were in, after I'd seen this, my buddy Doug showed me Archangel.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that?
Oh yeah, his series. Yeah.
Well, no, it wasn't a series. It was a 2-part MOW. That was like set in Russia, like immediately after the fall.
I call it a series, but yeah, okay.
Well, anyway, it was like maybe 2.5 hours total.
But the main thing that really got I watched it too. The main thing that really got him on the radar of the Bond producers was the movie Layer Cake, because they kept referencing that in terms of casting.
Yeah.
And then, like I said,
I would have thought it was Tomb Raider.
No, it was they mentioned Tomb Raider, but it was really Layer Cake that kind of put him over the top.
Well, I'm just saying that because that was actually kind of one of his lamer roles. In fact, actually, Munich, he was fantastic in Munich. That was almost like a soft audition for this.
Mark Ruffalo was in that, wasn't he?
No, I don't think so. Mark Ruffalo?
I believe he's in Munich.
I don't think he's in Munich.
I believe he's in Munich.
Well, you can check. I really don't think. You know what? I'll check. You give us some factoids. I'll check because I really don't think he was in it.
I think he was.
This is the way this conversation usually goes.
And also there's supposed to be there's actually an omitted line during the scene we just saw with Bond in M's place. Apparently, after he said the 007 reporting for duty thing, she's supposed to be followed up with, "You're supposed to be dead." He said, "I came back." And then she's supposed to end it with, "You only live twice, Mr. Bond." But they actually cut that out. So I thought it would have been nice. I thought it would have been nice. Oh yeah, and also some weird in terms of some weird ass association between the director and the actor. Sam Mendes, the director of this movie, was actually in a relationship with Rachel Weisz.
Really?
Who is the current Mrs. Daniel Craig.
And
funny enough, Daniel Craig was the one that suggested Sam Mendes for this movie.
Well,
yeah.
I guess James Bond wins. Dude, I'm not seeing this. I don't see Ruffalo.
Yeah?
No.
It's an Avenger in that movie.
No.
No? Go back.
So the lead in this is actually Eric Bana.
That's what it is. I knew it was a Hulk. I knew it was a Hulk.
Okay, I'll give you that. But how do you confuse Eric Bana and Mark Ruffalo?
Because I thought it was a Hulk. That's the first thing that popped in my head. I thought it was Mark Ruffalo. But it was,
so your way of connecting things is entirely
it's
all MCU for you.
Yes, it's all MCU for me. And I remember it was a Hulk in that movie.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, and Eric Bana does a bang up job. It's killer in that film.
Yeah, right. So I was technically right in a way.
Just admit it. Mark Ruffalo was nowhere near, except for maybe in a theater. Yeah. He got a screener sent to his house, I'm sure.
One thing they point out is the similarities between this movie and The World Is Not Enough. Okay, so both movies involve an abduction victim whose fate is left up to M. Who they view as a quasi-maternal figure. Mm-hmm. M is forced to make a deal, forced to deal with the consequences of her actions when said victims actually want revenge.
Right.
This is also they are only this and the World Is Not Enough is also the only James Bond movies where M actually plays a part in the story, rather than just giving
the orders and waiting to find out how it happens.
Yeah, basically. They also both feature a scene in Istanbul, Turkey. And also a chase in London. Same thing. And also both have an explosion in MI6.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
They also have MI6 also being temporarily located.
Now, this is the youngest Q ever.
Yes, it is. Ben Whishaw.
Which was really fun and interesting casting, I have to say.
Yeah, actually, the producers said when they came to trying to introduce the character of Q, it made sense that he would be a young tech genius now, and that this character was written with that in mind. Now they liken this version of Q to like Mark Zuckerberg or Jack Dorsey.
Can't they be better than them?
Yeah. Coincidentally, the actor himself doesn't actually own a computer. Yeah,
it'd be nice if he was like a young Elon Musk.
Yeah, but yeah, that's what they were going for in terms of the new Q. I love saying the name, the new Q. Yeah.
Maybe we can call that this episode the new Q.
No,
not enough Q.
No, I don't want to call it that.
M finally dies.
Let's put that
we'll
one.
Put that,
let's put that one in the back. I'm sure we can come up with something better, but let's put that one in the back pocket for right now.
All right.
M finally dies. I'm sure
this is the first movie M actually dies in, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But like, still, like, you know, just like, let's put that in the back. And now I love the little gadgets he gets him. It's just only two things: a signature gun, which is actually cool, which is not the first time they use a signature gun. They actually have a signature gun, a license to kill.
Oh yeah,
it's much bigger than this, but yeah.
Well, it's nice that
and his
technology gets smaller.
Oh yeah, and his transmitter. And I love the little joke he says: a gun and a radio. Not exactly Christmas, is it? You know, what you expecting? An exploding pen? We don't do that stuff no more. And actually, there have
in your face, Goldeneye.
Yeah, but there have been many exploding pens in the Bond franchise. I remember there was one in actually there's one in the unofficial one. Never Say Never Again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like
that's right.
But the thing about it is, like, you put the pen in backwards with the cap backwards or whatever. You twist it and you can fire it, and it's supposed to explode on contact. Now he does that in the movie. Sean Connery does to what's her name, Barbara Carrera, who was actually a great Bond woman, a great Bond villain. He does it to her in the abdomen. It doesn't explode at first. It's kind of defective, and then she kind of laughs and is about to kill him, and then it boom blows her ass up. And then it happened again in GoldenEye.
GoldenEye is the best because that makes the most sense.
Yeah, because they had the
couple clicks.
They had the little clicks, like 3 clicks to
turn it on, two to turn it off.
And then they had the suspenseful scene with fucking Boris.
Yeah, he's sitting there clicking the pen while he's trying to
and Bond trying to count all the clicks and shit.
Yeah. Now this right here, this opening sequence in Shanghai is beautifully shot.
It's so beautiful because that's really how Shanghai looks. And Tokyo is actually the same way.
Well, Taipei, Taiwan, where I just was, same thing. Yeah. Except for this rooftop pool with the glass enclosure where he's doing his workout, his swim.
Yeah.
That's absolutely gorgeous views all the way around.
Yes, it is, man. But my favorite thing about this is just the ride, like when he's like in the highway, and like going along the beautiful like going along the traffic ways in like those countries like Tokyo and like Shanghai. It's neon everywhere, bro. Like, it's just so damn bright and colorful everywhere. It's like it's like it's like you're going on a Disney ride.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
You're probably just trying to go to work, but it's like, oh yeah, I get to enjoy this while I'm going to work. I like this here, like fucking just Bond, just trying to be a chauffeur, sticking out like a sore thumb in Shanghai.
Hey, he's got a beard. It looks legit.
Oh my God, man.
It's not a Jack Dorsey beard, so it's okay.
That is true. I'll give you that. Yeah, and this is actually going back to M. This is Dame Judi Dench's 7th and final performance as M. She played M for 17 years from
2 Bonds.
Yeah, exactly. So between 2 Bonds, yeah, from 1995 to 2012. Now she actually ties the original M, Bernard Lee, who played it for the same amount of time, but he played it in more movies.
Yeah,
yeah. She played M in 7 movies. He played M in 11 movies. And
which is, I mean, that's pretty.
Yeah, and actually, she also ties Sean Connery and Roger Moore for Bond appearances, because both of them have been in 7 Bond movies.
Yeah,
and they're the leaders in terms of like.
But they were the Bonds.
Yes, they were, man, of their time. Like I said, but Roger Moore, actually, funny enough, Roger Moore is my dad's favorite. Because he grew up in the 70s and shit, so that was his Bond.
I mean, it makes sense. Whatever you were exposed to, that's going to be what leaves an imprint on you. And if it left a positive one, that'll be yours forever.
And I love, like, Roger Moore's Bond is the most lighthearted of the Bonds.
Yeah.
It's very clear, because his portrayal of Bond is not like this cold-blooded killer. He's basically like this playboy who happens to also kill people.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a similar thing with
I love the shot
Pierce Brosnan.
I love the shot here where you just shot the dude so quiet, but you see the violence.
Yeah.
That was great.
Well, and it's in silhouette too,
which
is really interesting. In fact, this whole next scene that takes place in silhouette up there with the large LED screen.
It's so fucking beautiful.
It's one of the best fight sequences, I think, in cinematography. And one of the things that Sam Mendes held back from doing that was actually just starting to wane in popularity was the camera in the middle of the fight.
True.
Because like when you watch, like going back to something like Jason Bourne, right? The Bourne franchise, Bourne Identity. That first sequence when he beats up the guys in the embassy and all that, you're outside of it, so you can really, truly appreciate the physicality of what you're watching. By the time you hit Supremacy and your camera's in the fight, you're being tossed around, it's just motion sickness. You can't tell what the hell's happening.
And also, speaking of that beard, though, he had, this is actually the second time that Bond has had a beard. The first time was actually Pierce Brosnan and Die Another Day. And this stunt here, that is actually Daniel Craig.
I'm sure that feels great.
Yeah, right? Yeah. For most of this shot, this is like of course not the long shot, but like for the close-up shot and all that good shit.
They probably went up like 3 floors, which is still enough to destroy.
And then the running start, that's all Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
That's fucking Realistically, that would fucking be painful.
Well, it'd be dangerous as hell too. There's no way in hell you could get away with that.
And then he has the shoulder injury, and also that's another thing. This is the second time. Another comparison to the world is not enough. Bond's shoulder gets injured.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because in the opening sequence of that movie, he injures it in that chase and shit. And this one, he gets shot.
Yep.
Yeah.
For the second time ever in the Bond franchise.
Second time ever. Which is
actually, he gets shot twice.
Oh yeah, he does.
Because he got shot when he was operating the controller box or what the caterpillar. I mean, and then he gets shot again by Eve.
That is true.
Because she's just a bad shot.
Yeah, she's a very bad shot.
Although, to be fair, I don't know if I can make it any better. I'm just more upset that she ends up shooting Bond and letting the bad guy get away.
Beautiful actress, bad shot.
If you're going to shoot Bond, shoot the guy too.
Now, speaking of this actual scene here, the actual glass set that we see here in this Shanghai skyscraper was actually nicknamed the Jellyfish. And most of it was actually built on the Pinewood Studios set. Yeah,
over in England.
Yeah. And they likened it to a hall of mirrors. And and the cinematographer said because it's all glass, the crew was walking through, the crew when they were walking through, it kept bashing into shit.
Yeah.
So, and they actually lit it with the 2 giant LED panels, which were meant to represent the billboards.
LED screen outside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they originally actually scouted locations in China for a skyscraper, but they proved to be unsuccessful. But the actual substitution here provided improvements because the fact is it gives like the multi-dimensional look being made of glass, and like I said, I think it's beautiful, man.
Which actually, going back to setting the table, you have the Hall of Mirrors moment where he's shooting at the glass in the opening sequence.
This is the second Hall of Mirrors movie in a Bond movie because your guy in The Man in the Golden Gun, the Funhouse sequence, that's another Hall of Mirrors.
Although it's not my favorite Bond sequence,
but still. Yeah. It's so beautiful, man. God.
Yeah, well, this is such a dark turn too, as they're setting up for this assassination.
Yeah, man. It's hard to not get engrossed with this scene, folks, because this is so beautifully shot.
Well, I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous, and here's the thing too: you got to think about from a production standpoint.
Yeah.
Getting all of the reflections that you want on the glass.
Yeah.
Because again, it's an entirely glass set without seeing reflections of the camera. I mean, I've watched this 100 times. I've never caught the camera or the crew in any of the glass.
That is true. I've never seen it either.
I mean, it would have to take just hours and hours and hours just to figure out how to light that correctly without picking up any of the reflections in the wrong way.
I like this complicated ass gun he got.
I don't know. It seems a little too complicated.
Like it is weird because like the silencer looks all boxy and stuff.
Well, that's actually not that far off. I've seen I think it's for the Glock 17, but I might be wrong on the Glock model. They have a new one that's threadless.
And the sound, because like he's doing the glass thing, and then like it's like quiet sound, and then he opens up.
Yeah, you get the atmosphere, the ambient sound.
So good.
Yeah.
Good. Kudos, Sam Mendes, bro. And the cinematographer, Roger Deakins.
That gun is overkill for that shot, too.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
He actually follows up the execution.
Yep.
And Bond just lets it happen because he really just want him.
Well, you need to go with what you need.
This is such a great sequence. All in silhouette. Look at that.
Yeah.
with all the glass. And,
he almost goes out the window there.
That's so. Look at this.
Well, and then again, talking about the sound.
Yeah.
You have it kick up right now, so
and
you've actually got the wind.
And just the momentary flashes from the fucking gun muzzle.
Yeah.
Look at that. Damn, they are going at it too, man. That's great. That's great fucking choreography. It's
great choreography. It's beautifully shot.
Oh.
It's a hell of an amazing set they've got there.
Jesus. Who's got the list? And he can't hold him because of the damn shoulder. I'm trying to question him. But
well, and this is the first moment in that whole fight sequence where you realize Daniel Craig isn't the one losing. Yeah. Because the assassin lost hold of the gun, and when he lost hold of the gun, you can't hardly tell who's who as they're flopping around.
And we get our first glimpse of one of the Bond girls in this movie. Is she the only Bond girl? Yeah, she's the only Bond girl in this movie. And she is.
And she knows that he basically threw him out the window.
And she is fucking beautiful, man.
And there, he's disappeared back into the shadows again.
Back into the shadows from whence I came.
Mm-hmm. Going back to the airport bar.
Yeah, man. And I actually have some notes about the actress who played apparently her name was like Berenice Marlowe.
Well, here he's just found the coin.
Yeah. And her name in the movie, which is like barely mentioned, is Savarine. And she's so actually they actually did another actress for, but she came in last minute. And freaking like apparently the other actress took another movie. It wasn't shit, so there's a bad move on her part.
Yeah. Really bad.
Really bad move on her part. So sorry, honey. I like this. Another one of those damn teases from
with the sugar skulls.
Yeah. Click here to claim your prize. And you see all the fucking exposed agents. And put them on YouTube.
What a douche.
That's so fucked up. Like, couldn't find out yet. They all dead. Yeah, it's a little too late. They all dead.
Yeah.
They are all dead. Mm-mm.
5 more every week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Think on Your Sins is it's actually kind of a ominous and dark way to set that up, especially because the Javier his backstory when that comes around later. That's something that it's so far afield, and it's actually a great origin story for his main nemesis or for the main bad guy in this one. Oh, and here we go. Coming to that shaving that you were so keen to talk about before. And that's actually the one thing about James Bond across the board that's just fantastic, is how ridiculously over the top it tends to be in that classic sense in terms of the suits, the straight razor shave. All of it has kind of got an old world quality that really makes for something a lot more fun as far as like a universe to be living in and working in. And here we go. She's coming into to his room, which is a dangerous move for a girl in a Bond film, especially if she's wanting to leave with the same amount of clothes on that she went in with. But we're getting ready to do your straight razor shave. Mm-hmm. We'll see what those 6 weeks worth of training did for her.
But this is a nice little non-seduction scene.
That's why that's why I was saying before. It's like it's a dangerous move for any woman to go into James Bond's room if she's not looking to go out with less clothes than she went in with.
Especially if you're wearing nothing but a towel.
Yeah.
Like, it's game time.
He's already halfway there.
Like, you know this guy. It's game time.
You know what's up.
You know what's up as soon as you walk in there.
It's like going to Charlie Sheen's. No question what's happening.
Yeah.
Tiger blood.
Winning. Winning. We need to bring that back. Winning.
But actually, the cool thing about this, though, the straight razor, this is a moment for him to basically show to her and to the audience that he's forgiven her for shooting him.
Yeah.
Right, because, that's pretty heavy. I don't, I've, knock on wood, never been shot by anyone, but I think I'd have a hard time forgiving them.
Yeah. And actually, funny enough, speaking of the other Bond girl in the movie here, well, technically speaking, yeah, and Naomi Harris was technically a Bond girl, but the other Bond girl, Savarine, apparently she said Daniel Craig was really shy and coy during their love scene that's going to be coming up here. Apparently, she said he's very shy, and when he saw me entering the shower, he was like, oh my God, because apparently she's fully naked. And he said he tried to keep his underpants on during the show. I was like, oh, come on, don't be shy.
That's because he probably already had his eyes on Rachel.
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't want Rachel Wise to be like, what were you doing in the shower?
Just going in there with my dick hard.
I was just acting.
Just with this hot chick and this hot naked chick.
This is when he shut her down. No sex. She's like going, okay, we're not having sex here. I'm just shaving.
All right, I guess.
I'm not that sorry.
Yeah. Can't leave give me some? You did shoot me.
Seriously.
Come on, man. That's such a dude thing to say. Like, come on, you could give me some. You did shoot me.
Hey, I'm just saying, if you're really that sorry.
If you really are sorry, just give me some real quick.
Nobody's got to know.
Oh yeah, and there's also a 4-year gap between this movie and the last movie before it, Quantum of Solace, which came out like in 2008.
But as you alluded to, they had the problems with the production company, stuff getting sold.
Yes, that's true. And I love this shot here, man.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Going into the casino in Macau.
Oh my God, look at that with the giant Chinese lit up giant Chinese dragon, and the music is so damn good. It's just so wonderfully
and the boat that he's coming in on,
the fireworks. Yeah, it just all works, man.
Cinematic as hell.
Yeah, like fucking, this is the world of James Bond. This right here, you know what I'm saying? Just this one
right here's why you want to make movies.
And it's just simple too. Just him on a boat.
No, there's nothing simple about this shot. Look at all those lanterns in the background, all the lighting and everything. This is gorgeous.
It's simple yet extremely complicated.
Yeah, I mean it's simple in theory.
Look at that. Oh my god, man.
I mean, for all I know, that's the way that casino looks in Macau all the time.
And now they get the dragons, which are all CGI.
Well, yeah, I mean,
they're
number one, expensive to wrangle.
A fine ass extra.
And number two, they're dangerous as hell. But yes, you're right.
And you see, like, I love this shot here where he's like going through the casino. You can just see Naomi Harris standing in random places, giving instructions while they're talking and shit.
Just standing around drinking.
I think at one point he does the stop touching your ear thing that he did in Casino Royale with her. So it's so cool. Like
you're giving yourself away.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? They're walking away, they're doing different things, but they're in communication the entire time.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And you can see her in the foreground throughout the entire thing. It's very well shot. There's one thing I will give to Sam Mendes. This is a extremely well shot movie, man.
Well, the composition is fantastic across the board. There's not a single shot that is not well framed and well executed.
Yes.
The lighting is fantastic across the board. The art department's fantastic. I mean, everybody brought their best to this, and nobody went overboard.
And even this little casino girl is bad. She's beautiful, man. She is. And they do. One thing I will say about the Bond people, they really know how to cast some beautiful women. Really beautiful women.
They know how to make some amazing films.
And they all got a lot of their body types are unrealistic. They got the model body, like freaking like very slim, very perky in certain places. Not too much ass, not too much titties, just that. I think the only one that's like really busty in terms of like casting was like Eva Green as Vesper. She was.
You mean in the current iteration?
Yeah.
You're not going old.
No, I'll go old school because old school you was plenty of tools. She was busting out of it.
That's what I'm saying. It's like going.
There's only but those are really the only two. Like if you think about it, like if you go over the whole little spectrum or whatever, like there's some that were kind of curvy. You know what I'm saying? There was some that but the vast majority of them were very slim built chicks. And it's kind of apparently that's the preference of Bond or the Bond producers.
One of the things I think a lot of people miss when it comes to the different actors who play James Bond, one of the things you sign away, and this is what I've heard anyway, when you become a Bond, you will never again appear in a tuxedo. At least not with the bow tie and that whole setup. That is a James Bond image. So the only way you can do it, like even when you see him doing, the different like watch commercials and all that shit, it has to be signed off through the Bond franchise, so they're all getting a piece of it.
Nice.
Which is brilliant on their part because that is the most iconic thing for James Bond to wear.
Yes, the tuxedo thing.
The tuxedo, yep.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, this is, hello, Mr. Bond. James Bond, the famous introduction.
Hi, I'm a whore. Can I interest you? That's basically what's going on here. Because she turns out to be, she's like a hooker, like a high class hooker, right?
Basically. working for Bond.
Yeah.
James Bond. There you go. And it's like a great YouTube compilation of all the different times that's been said. And it's just like even though it's just, 3 words, but like
They should do a mashup remix thing.
But like all the different actors do it in so many different ways. And I think the real iconic one was the first one with Sean Connery. We lighting a cigarette in the casino.
Yeah.
Bond. James Bond. I like Roger Moore's too, because his is kind of extended. My name is Bond. James Bond. I like that. Like you can't
Drops his earpiece.
Like you can't listen to this, baby.
You had your shot.
Yeah. Shaking, but not sir. Funny. All right, going to the actual drink itself, the Bond's drink of choice, the vodka martini. In the original novel Casino Royale, which they actually do in the movie too, his drink of choice is the Vespa.
The Vespa martini, right?
Yeah. Half of Gordon's, 3 measures of Gordon's, 1 of vodka, 1 measure of Keenan Lily shaken well over ice, and several thin slices of lemon peel. That's the Vesper. Now, more often than not, they just simplify with a vodka martini shaken, not stirred. I've had a vodka martini shaken, not stirred. This shit is disgusting.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. And here's the other thing, too. The reason you shake a martini instead of stir it is to chip up the ice and weaken the drink. Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of serves a purpose for him because he doesn't obviously want to get, like, shit-faced drunk most of the time when he's working.
God damn.
But it doesn't water it down enough to keep it from tasting like ass.
Yeah, folks, dog. Like, if you ever had a straight-up, like, vodka martini shaken, not stirred, this shit is like drinking.
You can stir it. It still tastes like shit.
It's like drinking rubbing alcohol. It really is. It's so goddamn strong and so tasteless.
No, the problem for me is the Gordons. I don't mind the vodka. I'll drink vodka straight. I'll drink whiskey straight. I do drink whiskey straight most of the time.
Right.
I just can't do the Gordons.
Is that Gordon's gin?
Yeah, it's gin. You know what? It's gin in general. I fucking hate gin. It's just not my thing. It tastes like you're drinking pine needles.
Funny enough, I actually, one of our friends at our cigar lounge, Bill, made me a gin martini recently, and it wasn't that bad.
Dude, I can't do it. That pine thing.
It's better than the vodka one. I give you that.
I guess I don't know. I'd rather just drink.
No, I think it's because of the fact he had the olives and all that shit, and I guess he kind of.
It's a dirty martini.
Yeah.
So he's basically covering it up with salty olive juice.
I guess so.
I mean, that's the only thing that ever made sense to me. Yeah, people talk about doing a dirty martini. I'm like, okay, well, yeah.
Yeah, when I did the vodka one, I did it with the lemon peel, and it didn't do shit.
No.
It didn't do a goddamn.
It literally tastes like you're drinking cleaning supplies.
Like straight rubbing alcohol, like bruh.
It's like lemon pledge and pine salt.
It's so gross. Oh my god! I took like one sip, like fuck this.
Yeah, it's
like. Could you give me something I know? Like, give me a bourbon and Coke. I'll stick with that. Yeah.
Dude, give me white label Doers, and I hate that shit. I'll still drink that.
And also going into, this is more of a personal thing here, and it's actually one of the projects I want to work on here with AJ, is I created a character years ago, a private eye character named Atticus Stone. And a lot of the elements that I tried to incorporate in that character were from the original interpretation of James Bond. Because I was thinking to myself, like, I want to create that kind of character where it's like somebody that kind of catches on with the public. And I was thinking to myself, what is about certain characters that catch on with the public? What is it about them? So I was looking at like James Bond and Indiana Jones and characters like that. And like, what is it? Sherlock Holmes. What is it about those characters that makes them stick out? And one thing that I found was consistent in terms of the creation of a lot of those characters, with the exception of Indiana Jones, is like a lot of them are based on real people. More accurately, the creators that produce them, like James Bond borrows elements from Ian Fleming. Sherlock Holmes is actually based on a dude named Dr. Joseph Bell, who was actually Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's teacher.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's based on a real guy. Huh. And so they have the mannerisms. The mannerisms and stuff that makes them unique and relatable is based on like the actual creators themselves.
Creators.
And another one of my favorite private eye characters is one called Spencer. For those of you who don't know, there was actually a TV show back in the 80s, Spencer for Hire, starring Robert Urich, and it's based on that stuff. And one thing I liked about the characters is because it reminded me a lot of myself. He's a big dude, strong dude, ex-military, likes boxing, likes well-cooked food, likes fucking bitches. And freaking like he's not like he's not like a super genius, but he's smarter than the average bear. You feel me?
Yep. Okay, here we go. Nice fight sequence.
Yes, sir.
And see, one of the things, again, it's great about this realistic.
Mm-hmm.
He's using what he's got for the fight, right? So as soon as these guys corner him, he doesn't pull his gun.
Yeah.
He starts beating the hell out of him with the case. just a case full of cash.
Exactly. And also, one thing you notice, right, going back to the actual movie itself, one thing you notice in this scene is that Daniel Craig's hands in certain scenes look kind of pudgy. Man, it's because of the fact that during filming, Daniel Craig had gone to the shops or whatever and purchased a pair of gloves that he thought were fitting for the Bond movies, or whatever. So Sam Mendes let him. Oh, I love this little dragon thing. Sam Mendes let him wear them during the scene, and during editing, they realized the gloves didn't work because of the logic of the scene. So what they did is, so basically, like he's supposed to be having a gun at one point, and him having a gun wearing gloves made no sense. So they weren't able to get rid of the gun. So after some frantic, reshooting, apparently Daniel Craig's hands throughout the whole sequence here is CGI. So.
Which is really kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Because how is he supposed to make the gun work, right?
Exactly.
From the beginning. Which was a great moment when the guy, the henchman, tries to shoot him and it proves, hey, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said, certain elements of Bond I want to incorporate to that character. I don't want to be too outlandish, but just kind of like John McClane, hyper reality.
Yeah.
I want that, and I love this scene. Like she's, sitting there with two glasses, waiting for James Bond to come, knock them boots, and then the dude comes in and is like, yeah, ain't nobody coming. And then she's like, and then I like just the little faint of disappointment in her face. Like but she's got a smile because like, okay, all right.
I can't be upset because then that's how I get beaten.
Yeah, exactly. I can't admit to my boyfriend's crew that fucking like I got another dude coming over to fuck.
That's what I was really hoping for the whole night.
Yeah, that's really exactly what she was hoping for the whole night. Yeah, but she is beautiful. And she's in there lonely, and now you see her in the shower, literally naked, which is great.
There's no proof of that.
She said she was naked.
That's better marketing for her.
Much better marketing for her. She's completely naked here, which is hot.
And shy Daniel Craig wearing boxers.
Yeah. It's okay, Daniel. You can come here naked with me. I would love. I would love for that.
I'm sorry. Are you telling me you'd love to be James Bond and play this part?
Yeah, I would.
I'm shocked.
Jesus Christ, I think it'd be great.
Color me surprised.
Color me surprised. I don't want to hear the word color come out of your goddamn mouth the entire time we do this fucking thing together. That's the one breaker of this fucking agreement. If color comes out of your goddamn mouth. Fucker. No, we're friends. But still. No, we're friends. But still.
You gotta save it for when we do Black Dynamite.
You better not say nothing during that shit.
Dude, I'm gonna say a lot during that shit. I love that movie.
Oh my god,
it's so fucking funny.
Yeah, and then the white dude who like doing all the racist shit in there, like when he's like tied up or whatever. Apparently, he's one of the original dudes from Dolomite.
No shit.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. They actually got one of the original guys.
They did that.
They got one of the original guys. Oh yeah.
I love Michael J. White.
Yeah, and then like now we see here back in the movie. Now we see that most of these people are actually most of the undercover agents that have been exposed by the villain are being killed.
And I'd like to assume that guy on the BBC was their version of Wolf Blitzer. I don't watch the BBC, but hopefully they gave him the same cred they gave CNN.
I don't watch BBC News, but I do watch the BBC.
Well, I mean, who watches BBC News? People in Britain.
Yeah.
Who watch Doctor Who and Star Trek reruns?
It has no relevance to me.
Yeah.
I don't live in Britain.
I literally just watch reruns of shows that I like on there. I watch the BBC Office.
I actually don't even go on there for the BBC, for the Star Trek show. I just go to fucking Netflix.
Well, no, I'm just saying that was the only time I ever watched it.
Yeah, I will watch Doctor Who on there, and then when Sherlock was on there, I watched that.
Dude, I can't even tell you the last time I watched shit on TV that wasn't coming from Netflix, Amazon, or YouTube.
That's true.
So I don't even know what any of them channels are doing anymore.
Another beautiful shot here, going to the island of the bad guy. And Bond giving his radio receiver, just a little bit of radio receiver, that's all it is.
Just a little radio to go with his gun. Mm-hmm. She's up there thinking about all the sex they had.
Yeah.
Because they're going to this Chinese island, factory island.
And he's like, this
This place is creepy.
and he's like, you can stop right now. No, I think it's a little too late for that.
No, your boyfriend's upset that
that I got them guts. So
yeah, you were kind of pushed a little too far last night. I guess
we're gonna go meet him. Yeah. And apparently he has his own abandoned fucking island.
Abandoned island of factories.
Jesus Christ.
Which is actually a really creepy killer location to shoot something.
Oh yeah, also a great promotional thing that they did for Skyfall, the Olympics. The 2012 Olympics, the opening ceremony had Daniel Craig as James Bond arriving and greeting Queen Elizabeth II.
Which was, I mean, they should do it. He's literally probably more well known than anyone except for the Queen.
Yeah, and then he escorts her to the stadium and shit, and then they in helicopter, and then they skydive down.
Well, do you remember when they announced him? How they did it, where they had him riding in on the
boat with the Royal Navy. So like with the Royal Navy.
It was a bunch of SAS guys.
Oh Jesus, yeah, that was dope though.
Yeah, dude, that was killer. I think it was SAS. It was one of their spec ops units.
Yeah, but that was such a bomb ass way to end. I wonder how they're gonna do it with the next guy that's coming up. And that's another thing we need to speculate on: who will be the next guy.
I'm still rooting for Idris Elba.
Me too.
I would love to see Idris Elba take that role.
Now, as far as
how old is Idris?
He's in his 40s, at least late 40s.
I mean, they could get 2 or 3 movies out of him if they do it quick.
Oh yeah, I love this scene here. The introduction of the villain, played by Javier Bardem.
And actually, this is 4 years after No Country for Old Men?
Yep.
Which, I mean, it was more recent that he took on this villain persona.
Yeah.
And he just kills it.
Now, I love this little story here that introduced. We talking about the whole thing with the rats. Like my grandmother used to have an island like this, you know. But the thing about it is, the island got infested with rats, and they would gorge themselves on coconut. So what my grandmother did is had a little barrel. She cut it into the ground and put a little piece of coconut as a trap, and caught all the mice in there. Now they can't get out, so what do? Start eating each other. Mm-hmm. But then once it's done, they take the rats that remain and release them again. But now they don't eat coconut anymore. They only eat rat. You've changed their nature. Mm-hmm. That's such a fucking great illustration to the relationship.
And it's dark.
And it's so cool. This one little shot here where he's just
slowly walking forward with all the computer servers around him.
Perfectly timed too.
Look at
that. Pushing in on the back of Dan Craig, and while he's walking, just so slow and methodical, telling this creepy ass story.
Well, and the other thing he's doing too, he's hitting that mark perfect where he stays dead center of frame the whole way up, which makes it even more disconcerting and just creepy as hell.
Also,
plus him as a blonde, holy shit.
Yeah. So this is actually the second time they've had an Academy Award winner play a Bond villain. The first was Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
Also blonde. And,
but he doesn't look quite as creepy as a blonde.
He was pretty creepy in that movie.
Well, he can be creepy.
Actually, funny enough, that look they had for Christopher Walken in that movie, they actually took it from their original choice, David Bowie. They wanted David Bowie to be.
So glad they didn't go that.
They wanted David Bowie to be Max Zorn.
That might have ruined the franchise.
But yeah, look at it's like second Academy Award winner to play a Bond villain. And like when he got cast, he actually translated the entire script into his native language, his native Spanish, because he wanted to really understand the character. And this is actually, I think, the second time that they've had a former MI6 agent as the villain.
What was the first time? I don't remember the first
Goldeneye.
time. Oh shit! Yeah, that's right. I forgot. I always forget that he was a member.
Yeah. He's like 006.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
There's so much weird shit going on in that film, though.
Yes. But yeah, Alex Trevelyan was an ex-MI6. Yeah, there's another trope in the Bond movies that a lot of people tend to notice: the anti-Bond as the villain. You know, this what if James Bond, a villain that's so like James Bond, what if James Bond turned evil? Like your guy, Scaramanga. What if Bond was an assassin? What Bond? Yeah. Even Mankiewicz wrote it freaking while I have my mansion and I have my things, you just have a little pension and fucking I do the same thing you do. I just have a little pension and you know what I'm saying, a little good job from the Queen and all that shit. You know, And then like the whole reason he does the whole thing is because he considers Bond his equal.
Yep. Well, and what's crazy with I was slightly distracted here as I was watching this again.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting choice they went for here with these computer servers all stripped down the way they are.
Yeah.
It kind of creates, I don't know, it's a different sense of, you kind of fall in between, somewhere between, is this construction or destruction?
Yeah. And I like this weird homoerotic.
There's a
thing.
lot of that with him.
Yeah, this weird homoerotic thing that he's doing with James Bond right now. Like, touching all up on him and shit. And like,
yeah, you can just say it's gross.
Yeah. It's your first time, Mr. Bond? What makes you think this is my first time? Ooh.
It's like, okay. I'm into that.
Yeah, apparently you are, brother.
You have some training.
So, Javier Bardem himself described the character of Raul Silva as an angel of death, a very clean-shaven person who happens to be rotten on the inside. He has a very personal objective. He's not trying to destroy the world, and he's on a straight line to that objective. This is a man seeking revenge.
Yes.
It's about being focused on one person that he wants to eliminate, him. And it's like, it's always about the person who, like, in terms of finding who he is, the character, it's always about finding the person behind the character. It was very difficult for me to play a role if I just saw him as some sort of symbol. In this case, this is a man that's suffering. This is a man full of pain and frustration who simply wants to fix a situation. Now, beyond that, there's room to be funny and aggressive, but I can perfectly understand who this guy is, and that helped me portray him.
Yeah.
So I really
and look, his portrayal is creepy and haunting.
Yes,
in a word.
Yes.
I mean, of all the Bond villains, I think
of the Daniel Craig regime, he's the hands down the best.
For all of them, for me, this is the most haunting of all the Bond villains.
I'm trying to think of who.
There's some great Bond villains. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, it's such a twisted role.
You know the one Bond villain I love the most. And a lot of people, it's a weird choice for a lot of people. I like Telly Savalas as Blofeld.
Okay.
Because the fact he reminds me so much of Lex Luthor. And actually, Clancy Brown, when they did Superman the Animated Series, the look and the voice of Lex Luthor is based on Telly Savalas as Blofeld.
Huh.
So, and then like the cool, calm, he's the first, at that time, he's one of the first villains where it's like, he looks like he not only is he a mastermind, he looks like he can actually fucking fight Bond.
That's true.
And win.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, like, there's actually...
Telly Savalas is not a small man.
There's a risk there.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Yeah.
And how cool and calm he is. He still does the European thing with the cigarettes and shit, but at the same time, it's like, he actually gets into physical confrontation with James Bond, which I can appreciate. And I also love Scaramanga. Scaramanga would probably be number 2.
Yeah, that'd be my number 2.
Yeah. Yeah. We are the best. To us, Mr. Bond.
And this is
we
where...
are the best.
This is where we go to the darkest turn of...
He got
Javier Bardem.
Yeah, he got the girl, and they're gonna play a little game. Listen to this weird ass Spanish music. Yeah, no, it's actually French. Apparently, I looked up as French, but like the girl is captured.
That was kind of a thing going on at this point in time. There was a lot of people playing with these weird French songs. I don't know. It was like a weird trope they like made into all the major films.
Like Wes Anderson just infected everybody.
I mean, it was in what was that other one? Inception.
It sure was, yeah.
Yeah, that was like the thing every time.
Yeah, everybody tried to do a Wes Anderson movie.
Yes.
Just some weird ass French shit out of nowhere. And she got...
Apparently they fucked her up.
Yeah, man, it's fucked up.
That's some nice whiskey.
I was about to say, he's a horrible person, but he got a really good taste in liquor.
Yes, he does.
McAllen? Oh, my God.
1962.
Yeah, man. And yeah, the year that the first Bond movie came out, 62, yeah. And this is so weird with the old school revolver. We're gonna play a game of fucking playing. We're gonna play William Tell with my girl. Crazy. And kiss. He just beat the shit. He just had her the shit beat out of her. Kissing her. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's okay, baby. It's okay. You know. We're just gonna play a little shooting game with you. Now, what I want you to do, hold this on your head. Okay, there you go. So weird. Just a little shot glass. Stay right there, girl. Stay right there. So fucked up. They have Bond do it first. That's fucked up, man. with muskets.
Yeah, with a fucking smooth bore.
Goddamn muskets and shit. You gonna shoot the gun or we gonna shoot you?
There's only one guy with a gun. Everybody else needs to have their
No, the
guns
other guy
ready.
got a gun, you see that?
Well, he doesn't even have it at the ready.
Yeah.
Why don't we kill him with that?
Yeah, he does.
Everybody needs to be ready to shoot bombs.
He does kill them.
That's what I'm saying, man. It's like it's fucking nothing.
Yeah. Man. And it's so quiet.
Mm-hmm.
In this whole scene.
Well, it's raising the tension.
He's fucking with him like, come on, man. He's fucking with him. Man. So dark and so. Sorry, required. It's just such a really good scene.
Well, actually, I mean, you need the quiet to really experience this.
Yes, you really do.
I mean, that was one of the things that I think is underutilized is silence in movies. Because if you've got a full space that's covered with a great sound and sound design, and you drop it out, it heightens the tension in a way.
You know, the last movie that I went to that actually the silence got to me, really, was what's the shit, Lone Survivor?
Yeah.
The Mark Wahlberg movie.
Yeah.
Because, like, I'm a veteran, folks, and one thing that a lot of war movies do not get properly is the eeriness of the silence.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like your first time outside the wire and you're actually going in country. You're out there at night.
Yeah.
Just the whole scariness of being out there alone. It's just, well, you're there with other Marines and shit like that, but, you know, you're pretty much out there. You don't know what's out there, and it's just nothing for hours and hours on end. It's unnerving. It really is. So, yeah, the silence of movies can work so effectively.
That is when the radio works.
Yeah. The latest thing from Cuba, I just called the radio. With the helicopters coming in to his island.
They got the Union Jacks flying high.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was my whole point before. It's like that guy with the gun right there, it, obviously, as I said, it didn't do shit for him. The other dude with the assault rifle should have been ready to rock and roll.
That's true.
And he's dead now.
Yes, he is.
Like, you're literally with one of the most dangerous people that's ever lived.
And also, Javier Bardem's casting is actually the first time a Spanish actor has actually played the lead villain in a Bond movie. But he's actually the third Spaniard. Apparently, there's one bad guy and died another day, and another bad guy in Quantum of Solace. But this is the first one where he's actually the lead guy.
Yeah, but to be fair, for like the first 30-ish years, the bad guy always had to be Russian.
Yeah, Russian or working for the KGB in some form or another.
Which is still Russian, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you're fine.
No, Goldfinger was German. I'm just saying. Goldfinger was German.
Okay, they have to be white and have a weird accent.
Yes. Okay, let's go with that. Let's go with that. Yes.
Since we got one German in the mix with all the Russians.
Yes, I'll give you that. Yeah, and actually, this whole plot here, that's another fucking convention from The Dark Knight. The villain wanting to be caught. Yeah. He did this on purpose. And I love this little dialogue where he's like fucking with her, like, yeah, you remember me? Yeah, you fucked me over. You left me to die, basically.
Yeah. Well, then when he takes out that plastic surgery piece and his face sinks in.
Oh, God.
Again, with a nod towards The Dark Knight.
But then he's telling the story like him, you know what I'm saying? Like, freaking, he left me to suffer and suffer and suffer. And he tried to do the cyanide capsule, but that didn't work. So he just basically burnt his insides. Yeah. So just, God, man.
Just fucked him up.
And it's all your fault. Like, you fucked up him. This is what you did. This is what you did to me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, you expect me to just be cool about this? No.
How about I kill you?
Yeah, how about I kill you?
And actually,
Javier Bardem said the first Bond movie he ever saw was actually Moonraker, and his favorite henchman, Jaws.
Well, Jaws was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Moonraker, though.
Moonraker was the first one he ever saw. What? I like Moonraker.
Nobody likes Moonraker.
I like Moonraker. Fuck you. I like Moonraker. I'm sorry. Shut up. Don't know what I like Moonraker. I like Moonraker.
You're the first person I've ever met who's like, oh yeah, man, Moonraker.
I don't mind Moonraker. It's silly as shit. Yes.
I love Moonraker.
No.
And Godfather Part 3 was the best.
I'm not saying that shit. But I do like Moonraker. I'm not saying the Godfather shit, but I do like Moonraker.
Now we're getting into guilty pleasures.
It's silly shit. Like fucking it's Bond in space doing laser bat.
It's guilty pleasure bullshit.
It's very much guilty pleasure.
It's like what was that? Legends of the Fall. It's like it's guilty pleasure. You're like, okay, fine, yeah.
You know what my guilty pleasure is?
What?
And I actually admit, I don't give a fuck. I'll admit this. Grease 2.
I wish I knew enough to make fun of it. I've never seen that shit. Dude, I never saw Grease.
No?
Nope.
Oh, well, yeah.
I've never dated anyone that wanted to see it, and my wife hasn't asked yet.
My mother loves musicals, so she's like,
okay.
we
Yeah,
watch
I like
with her.
musicals.
But like,
What's your favorite musical?
ever?
Yeah.
Blues Brothers.
Me too.
Yeah.
So that's why we're friends.
Blues Brothers. Yeah, that's my favorite.
Blues
musical.
Brothers is great.
Now it's taking.
Okay, here's the most grotesque moment.
God, taking out the prosthesis and see the rotten teeth and the sunken face. He said, look at me. Look at what you did. Oh, God. This is what you did, Em.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, you did that.
Gotta look away.
Yeah, because it's true. You did do that. You left him to die.
That's what she does.
You left him to die.
Well, I mean, it makes, for the origin story, the whole thing makes perfect sense.
This is the consequences of your actions here, you know? And actually, Javier Bardem and Daniel Craig actually bonded on set for a shared love of, you'll love this, shared love of rugby.
I do love that.
Yeah, exactly. So apparently in his youth, Daniel Craig played for the Holek Rugby Club in Worrell, Merseyside. And
did it say what position?
No. And Javier Bardem played for Club de Rugby Liceo Francais in Madrid. And he actually even made the Spanish national team at an underage level.
Nice.
So good. So yeah.
Well, and I was actually going to say it earlier, but I didn't want to drag rugby into the conversation. But he's Daniel Craig's built like a rugby player. Still.
Yes, he is. Yeah. So yeah, there you go.
Well, there we go.
Share love of rugby.
Well, now when I meet him one day, we'll have something to talk about.
So you guys love rugby? I love rugby.
Although since he's an Englishman, I very highly doubt he'd be much of a fan of either the All Blacks or the Irish, and nobody likes the American team except for Americans. we just anytime we get a decent player, they always leave.
Oh wow!
except for in sevens, we're killing it in sevens.
Oh, I don't know what that means.
you're gonna watch it, you're gonna fall in love too. It's killer.
Oh yeah, Javier Bardem also says that he was actually offered a role in a earlier Bond movie. He doesn't really remember exactly which one. He said, "Yes, I was offered Bond. I don't remember what movie it was for, but yeah, it was just not the time. I didn't feel it was time for me to do something like that, and also I was doing something else, so I passed." Now this time I read it, I felt it was very powerful material, and I wanted to join.
Yeah.
So and it really was. Like, this is one of the best written Bond movies ever.
Mm-hmm. And here he is, just relaxing.
Yeah, waiting for
as a whole plan's coming together.
Just like the fucking Joker.
Exactly.
Just like fucking Heath Ledger's Joker, man. Just waiting for I know this is about to go down, so fucking I'm just gonna sit here and chill. Yeah. Yeah. My shit's gonna be executed properly. I love this it's so weird, the computer algorithm. Like fucking how do you
it's
figure
morphing and fighting him?
Oh yeah, and this shit here where she's at the hearing, the fucking speaker lady won't let her talk.
Yeah.
even fucking Ray Fiennes it'd be nice to actually hear from the person.
Well, what's great is that apparently whether we're in the parliamentary system in Britain or the congressional system here in the U.S., it's the same shit. Politicians just want to run their mouths and not let anybody that's a quote-unquote witness say anything. They're all just soundbite
Exactly.
assholes.
But goddamn it, just let me fucking...
So okay, so I have to sit here and watch you try to come up with your press clippings. Like, seriously?
Yeah.
I got shit I can do.
And funny enough here, going back to our Eve here, Naomi Harris, she's actually from Jamaica, which is where Ian Fleming wrote the Bond stories at his GoldenEye estate, which is actually a dope-ass name for a house.
It's not bad.
GoldenEye. And actually at 35, she was 35 when she got cast, and she's actually one of the oldest women to play a Bond character. She's actually tied...
You mean a Bond girl?
Bond girl, yeah.
Okay.
Actually, apparently the oldest ones were Honor Blackman. No, actually, they beat that. No, with what's her name? Old girl Inspector, Monica Bellucci. She's the oldest one ever. She's like,
yeah.
She's like 50.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the other ones, other than Naomi Harris, were Honor Blackman and Goldfinger. pussy galore. And hey, I'm looking at this. The two chicks that were actually tied for the oldest were both the chicks and their characters named Pussy. Pussy Galore and Octopussy. Maud Adams. Those were the two oldest ones. And both of them were actually 37 at the time they were cast. Octopussy and Pussy Galore, the two oldest ones.
Oh shit.
Oh yeah.
He just pulled up the London Underground and now all the doors are opening.
Yeah.
Daniel Craig's got to run like
I don't
Tom
get
Cruise.
I really don't get the significance of doors open, to be honest with you.
All the security systems shutting down.
Oh, that's what
so
it
they're
is?
like electronic locks. So when the electronic lock kicks off, it's all
gotcha. Not such a clever boy. Shit. Yeah. Damn, he hacked you.
There's nothing I can do.
The millennial arrogance didn't help you there, kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When does that ever happen? When's a millennial ever been?
Exactly, yeah.
And
oh, man.
They never really do explain how it is that this guy who was in there, where the only thing that happened was the door open, somehow managed to kill 2 armed guards.
Yeah. Who opened the door?
Well, no, the door. So supposedly the door's all open because the electronic alarm turned off, right?
Oh yeah.
But how does he kill him? Because he doesn't have a gun. Because presumably they searched him when they put him in his jumpsuit and all that shit. It's like
he's probably just that badass.
Because I don't remember. Maybe I'm missing it in here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wait, no. They get to that inspector, right? Don't they? The guy who was on the inside that helped him get out.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's what it was. So
okay.
so they explain it in the next movie.
Okay, and also this scene here where they go in the underground here. Now this scene where it actually culminates in a tube crash. This is all filmed at Pinewood at the 007 stage. Basically, yeah, this set has been used for some of the biggest set pieces in the Bond movies in the past. Yeah. I think my favorite
just around the corner from the Monarch Theater.
Shut up. It actually is just around the corner.
I know, it's the same place.
Yeah, but my favorite set piece from that stage will probably be the submarine base in The Spy Who Loved Me. I loved how that looked.
Yeah, it was killer.
And it was huge. And you get the 2 actual submarines in there. I'm like, God damn, that's fucking production value.
Mm-hmm.
So and then I believe the one they actually built for the shit in You Only Live Twice, the fucking moon base. I don't think it's the exact same stage, right. But like fucking the huge ass stage. Yeah, the Bond set piece has always been extravagant and fantastic, but this is actually really good. The fact that this is all fucking one stage.
Yeah.
Damn. And the damn train coming. Yeah. So for the actual crash itself, the crew built a 2 full-size fabricated tube carriages, each weighing about 5 to 7 tons. The real ones weigh about apparently 25 to 30 tons. Yeah. The tube carriages themselves were raised on a track about 20 feet above the base of the stage. Near the ceiling of the stage, the broken the broken tube tracks were turned downwards, and with a monorail supporting the carriages from above. The trains themselves then accelerated on this elevated track, guided by the monorail, as they veered off the tracks and crashed through the fucking ceiling. And the whole ceiling was composed of breakaway elements. Yeah. Now, when the train crashed, it basically destroyed most of the stage. The digital effects they added afterwards, we will give a little more splash, but that was a practical fucking crash. And apparently, it was too dangerous. It was like too dangerous for people to be allowed to stay on the soundstage during the filming. So they had 11 remote operated cameras in place on stage during the crash. I'm
sure they probably learned quite a bit from the tube crash, or I guess the subway crash in Die Hard with a Vengeance.
That's true.
Because it's a very similar setup. Yes, and it's a crazy thing. I mean, working on the art side as long as they have been behind, these guys, they all call each other. They all watch each other's special features. They hire each other's crew when they can because they want to, especially when it comes to stunt stuff like this, it's a really small world. The number of people out there that can do this kind of work and do it safely and do it well. And also, let's know about the actual marketing for this movie. Daniel Craig himself appeared in several commercials. I remember this when around the time it came out. He was in a bunch of goddamn commercials. He was in commercials for Heineken, Amiga watches, Sony Electronics, and it's like, look, Daniel Craig himself said, the simple fact is, without him, we weren't able to do this movie. It's unfortunate, but that's how it is. The movie costs a lot of money to make. It costs nearly as much to promote, so we go where we can. So freaking,
Open. I love this shit. Like,
You really want to know?
No. Open the door. Open the door.
She's just sitting there like, should I?
Carry on. Yeah.
Health and safety.
Yeah.
Which is great because if you've ever talked to anyone who's lived there and deals with health and safety, they're like the worst people from the government that are like, oh no, you can't put the cap on from the left to the right. It has to be from the right to the left. They're nitpicky as shit. They're 10 times worse than OSHA.
Really?
Yeah, dude. They're like, it's like a joke, like how invasive those people can be into people's lives.
And also going back to the islands real quick that Tiago Rodriguez, aka Silva, had. Apparently, he's the 7th villain in a Bond movie to have an island lair.
Who doesn't want an island lair?
Yeah, there's Crab Key and Dr. No, Palmyra and Thunderball. The Japanese island, the volcano shit was an island. And You Only Live Twice.
Dude.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Kananga shit and Live and Let Die.
I don't know if there's ever been a spy comedy that doesn't have an island layer in it, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Like even The Incredibles, that first one, it's an island layer.
And Dr. Evil has several island layers. And
then it happens over and over again in Archer.
Yeah. I love this shit here, which is like, am I interrupting you? No, please continue, bitch. Yeah, just keep berating me.
Yeah,
like,
go ahead and keep talking.
I'm sorry that I'm not looking at you as you berating me. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry that I run our spy agency and there's some horrible shit going on that's taking my attention away from your pontificating right now.
Which you would never be able to actually handle in real life. So fucking, fuck you.
Seriously.
Yeah, God.
I get it. You want to be prime minister. That would be the best. Like, y'all understand.
We get it. You want to be.
But for fuck's sake, I got stuff to do.
Oh, another fun fact.
Okay, this right here, I've often thought about.
This is actually Daniel Craig doing this.
I would have loved to have done this
to
a little extent.
Yeah.
Except for that part, is what I was always scared shitless of.
Yeah.
Was the launch at the end?
Yeah. The actual stunt itself, the whole thing was actually Daniel Craig, which is crazy.
I bet that was fun.
Hell yeah.
He probably had a bunch of pads to hit at the bottom.
Yeah. And another fun fact I looked up, so characters in this movie, Ray Fiennes, the dude that plays Tanner, his M's little assistant, and Q have all played Hamlet.
No shit.
They've all played Hamlet in different productions.
That's a fun little one.
Ray Fiennes played Hamlet on Broadway. Dude that played Tanner played him on the National Theater, and Q played him in the old Victorian Theater. Huh. They all played Hamlet. Sorry. Oh man, so
which is great.
She's still going.
She's been talking literally this whole chase.
Yeah,
just talking.
I love when Gary finally says, "Fuck it." Okay, could you please stop? We actually like to hear from her.
Some of us here have heard from you a lot.
Yeah.
Do you mind if we hear from her?
If I actually hear from her for
just for variety, which is the best line ever.
Yeah.
Maybe for the sake of variety.
Ray Fiennes, man.
We could hear from her for a moment.
Yeah. Yeah, so like all the people from the Avengers, Ray Fiennes is in this Bond movie, and then you have the older people that were in the older Bond movies, like Patrick McGowan, John Steed. He was in A View to a Kill. He was what's his name? His assistant. What was his name in that movie? The fat dude that gets killed. But anyway, yeah, the original John Steed was in A View to a Kill. Honor Blackman. Pussy Galore was also on the Avengers, and so was Diana Rigg from Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Oh, okay.
So all these different people, and also technically Sean Connery, because he was the villain in the Avengers movie, and that's where Ray Fiennes is from.
Right. Yeah.
Sean Connery was the villain. So,
yeah, I think I don't know. Maybe I'm weird, but I feel like more people have probably seen the movie than the series.
Yeah. I love this shit here. Like, was that supposed to hurt me? No, but this is. Yeah. No, but this is. Oh my God. And here comes the train. Yes.
Seriously.
And look at that. Most of that is real.
Yeah.
Jesus.
All the trains, or all the cameras they definitely took out now.
Yeah. 2 actual real 2s. The rest of it is CGI. God damn, man. Look at that.
Yeah. That's a hell of a shot.
That is badass. Oh my god! Just the reset up for that shit was fucking.
Yeah, could you imagine if you didn't actually end up speeding?
Oh my god!
How did you get fired?
I was so fucking.
I didn't turn the camera on.
You motherfucker! That was a train crash. That shit don't just happen.
See, here's the thing: when it comes to movies, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I think people who aren't used to production don't understand.
Yeah.
Every day that you shoot, there is a dollar figure you can put on that day, and on certain days there's hourly figures.
Mm-hmm. That
day right there, from a practical standpoint, that could be $500,000.
Yeah.
And if you fuck that shot up,
bye-bye.
We got 20 more cameramen waiting around the corner.
Yeah. Oh yeah, another great fact I looked up. This is the only Bond movie with no leading Bond girl.
Oh yeah.
Technically, the lead Bond girl in this movie really is M. But like in terms of like a romantic interest for Bond, there is none.
Nah, because she's already dead.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's this kind of sort of sex with Eve.
Yeah, so.
But it's just sexual tension, really.
More or less than anything. I love this little thing from she has from Tennyson. Yeah, the little poetry thing.
Which apparently is an English thing, because I just got done reading a book about Churchill.
Yeah.
Apparently, in like these dire circumstances where it's life and death, there's a tendency, at least with the older cast, to just from time to time break into poetry.
Yeah.
Which, that's kind of interesting. It's definitely old world. I can't imagine anybody in our current political environment breaking into poetry. I'm sorry, have you heard some Walt Whitman?
I think Trump would do.
Would you like some Rudyard Kipling?
I think Trump would do poetry, but it'd be like some shit like
a road diverged
no,
yellow woods.
No. That once was a woman from Nantucket.
I think mine was definitely a little more like Kennedy-esque. So
no, but
I think you brought it back to.
That once was a woman from Nantucket.
There you go. You got to do a little more. Yeah.
You almost got to do like the puckered asshole voice with fucking. That's the nuance of Trump. It's like you got something.
Okay, wait. Here we go.
Oh man.
Gunshots.
And then you see fucking M actually doing some. You see AM doing some action here.
Yep. Yeah. The next M.
Yeah.
Saving the old M.
Yeah, taking a shot, man.
Took a good one in the shoulder.
Yes, he did. Bond's still on his way.
Bond's still out there doing his Tom Cruise impression.
Yeah. Him and Pierce Brosnan used to do that pumping shit.
Yeah. You know what? Swinging your arms makes you run faster.
Yes, it does.
True.
I learned that in track. I was only in track briefly, but I learned that in track.
I like how now she's finally redeeming herself with the gunshots.
Like, everybody gets a gun now. Oh, the gun dropped. Now M gets a gun. Or future M gets a gun.
Yep. Well, and apparently all these guys have some sort of training because they can actually hit some shit.
Yeah.
You don't find with most Brits, including most British cops. They don't really carry guns.
No, they don't.
It's not their thing.
But yeah, like they said, like then they said like the him was like the other M was like an Irish militia or army or some shit like that. They make some reference.
Well, they basically kind of do some sort of reference, like it possibly was in SAS or something like that.
Something like
a special forces kind of a division.
Mm-hmm.
But that makes sense because, I mean, again, with what this is coming from, with Ian Fleming and everything, everybody served.
Yes.
Right? So everybody had a military background. Everybody had at least basic familiarity with firearms. They could do something if they needed to do it.
Yes.
But see, even him right now coming out as a cop carrying a gun, that would be suspicious as shit.
Yeah. Look at that. God damn, it's such a good movie, man.
And he steals M's car.
Yes, he does. Puts her in there, tries to get it himself, and it just drives off.
Oh, you're on your own, buddy. Guess who gets to walk home? You ain't riding my Jag.
You riding my Jag. Where are we going? We're going here. We're going underground. We're going hiding.
Yeah. You're killing a lot of people, Em.
Yes, you are, Em. Unless you're finally realizing that.
Yep.
But we gotta get out of here because he's coming for you. I'm gonna get you out of there.
And we're lucky we screwed up his plan once. But we gotta do something completely unexpected now.
Like I gotta get my mom out of there, man.
Seriously.
Yeah. Cute. Yeah. I need some. Virtual breadcrumbs and shit. Yeah. Make sure you can't follow us. If you can follow us, he can too. Sorry about that, folks.
Well, and that's when he sets up the whole fake breadcrumbs.
Yeah, fake breadcrumbs. Yeah.
Give himself some time to get set.
He's like, is this even legal? Not even remotely. So much for my promising career.
For my promising
career. Yeah, I love this here. We're going old school.
Which is heartbreaking in about 25 minutes.
Yes, it is.
Because oh my god, it's so sad. I just hope that they had a
really
great
But it's seen here the return of an old beauty, the DB5, the Aston Martin, the Bond car.
Which I've heard from people who've actually ridden in it. Mm-hmm. They say it is uncomfortable as shit.
Yeah.
Especially for tall people like us.
Yes.
But I still love that car.
Look at that. That's James Bond right there,
yes,
man. The DB5. First debuted in Goldfinger, man.
No computers, no bullshit.
Exactly. And a lot of the gadgets
Mechanics and that's it.
Yeah, a lot of the gadgets actually worked. And
yeah, it's all mechanical.
And the classic Bond thing, as they rolling through England, trying to get out of town and shit. And she's talking shit about the car. And he pulls up the fucking ejector shit. Like, hey, you keep talking shit. And she's like, oh, Jamie, I don't give a fuck.
I'm sick of this shit. Just get rid of me already.
Fine. Yeah. Apparently, the DB in the car or whatever, it stands for like David Brown. He's like an engineer that worked on it.
Well, good for him.
Yeah, man.
They're all the way up to what, like the DB9 now, I think, or do they do DB10?
I believe so, like DB9.
I can't keep it straight. I don't have enough money, and it just hurts my head to follow it.
And I love this here, like fucking, like you see how cool the new M is, like fucking, like what y'all doing? Like, well,
illegal shit.
Good. Keep it posted. Good. Keep it up, guys.
Illegal shit.
Keep it up, guys. Yeah, I like it. It's good. It's a good idea. Like it is like this is to me when I knew he was gonna be the new. I was like, oh, okay, yeah,
he comes in, takes charge.
Yeah, exactly. Takes charge. He's with them. You know what I'm saying? Like fucking like.
Well, and to be honest, I missed in the opening sequence that Judi Dench's name came up on the tombstone.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't think she was gonna die the first time I saw this.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't entirely there, but I was kind of going back for. I figured maybe she'd get fired.
Yeah, and then now we're headed to Scotland.
Is this the first? I think this is the first time they've ever actually gone to Scotland.
Yes, it is actually. And yeah, this is the first time we actually see Bond's ancestral home, as it were. And this is a dreary ass place to grow up. Oh my god! No wonder you're fucking so depressed all the time. I love this little dialogue here, like you know what I'm saying, like how old were you when they died? You already know that. You know the whole story. And unless orphans always make the best agents.
Yeah.
And she got the best one out of all of them, man.
Seriously, the best of the best.
The best of the best. And I love how it gets like there's like some bagpipe and shit as they like driving along.
Yeah.
Like, just the one long ass bagpipe string. But yeah, it's you're in Scotland.
Yep.
But that is a dreary ass place to grow up.
I don't know anything about Scotland other than I think I've got family from there, and they left for a reason. I've tried several
times.
That's what I've been told.
I've tried several times to write a skit about a Scottish character. I got the name down. I got the accent down pretty much. But,
Young Skipper Willie?
No. Rowdy Rodney McCullough.
That's a mouthful without an accent.
Rowdy Rodney McCullough. So I was just trying to think of the proper context to bring on Rowdy Rodney.
I will say,
Black Scotsman.
I never would have expected them to have as big a mountains as they do.
But just like a Black Scotsman who's like of this generation, like fucking like just think of the average black kid or whatever. Like all they talk about is rap music and YouTube and shit like that. But he's super Scottish. So, yeah. Well, look at that elk. That's a hell of an elk for the Skyfall Lodge.
Well, no, it's a stag. It's a deer.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's a stag.
Hey, you've hunted, haven't you?
Once. It was a disaster. My dad.
Did you shoot somebody?
No, I didn't shoot you. I was just too scared. My dad was like, "Well, I ain't never taking fucking hunting." And fucking, they brought. That's the first time I actually tasted deer. Like, yeah, deer meat is sweet, folks.
Well, so it depends on how you prepare it, but yeah, it's a little sweet.
When I tasted it, was sweet.
Yeah. Elk is better than deer.
Yeah, deer sausage and all that shit. That's what they made.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad.
It's all right.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
The best is actually wild boar.
I never had wild boar. I've had steaks, shark steaks.
How's that?
That shit is really good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I've never had shark.
Better than I thought it'd be, man. It was really fucking good. Very tender. Yeah, man. Eat some shark, folks.
Does it have the same consistency as like salmon or something?
It's hard to describe, but
because that's the thing that bothers me about a lot of those, is like the way it kind of slides off.
No, it's a little tougher than salmon, especially because when I had it was grilled. So
yeah, and see that sounds like something I'd try.
And Kincaid, played by the late Albert Finney.
He's a great actor.
Written for Sean Connery.
Sean was like, no thanks.
Yes, this character was. Kincaid was supposed to be Sean Connery, but I would have loved it if fucking was Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Yeah, Emma, and they fucking like keep hollering at him. What's happening to him?
She's a hot young thing.
She's a hot one now. Yeah, so it was originally written with Sean Connery in mind. They wanted him to come out of retirement and make a surprise cameo.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. I'm sorry. There was a definite discussion about Connery playing Kincaid early on, but it became problematic. And it mainly is Sam Mendes saying this. It's like mainly because to me, it takes you out of the movie. Connery is Bond, and he's not going to come back as another character. It's like he's been there. And like there was a very brief flirtation with that thought, but really it was never going to happen because all it would do is distract.
Okay, so before I go back to what I was going to say before, this would be the part that would absolutely piss me off. He came back, and his entire armory has been stripped out and sold. Which would drive me nuts, except for the one shotgun that's his dad. Yeah. But what I was going to say before is, do you remember the Mad TV sketch with Sean Connery and Catherine Zeta-Jones?
I remember they do the shotgun.
Where he says something like, to the effect of, before we do this scene, I just want you to know, I'm sorry if I get a boner. And I'm sorry if I don't. That's what I was thinking of when he was talking to M just now. I was like, holy shit.
So apparently that hunting rifle that they just showed, the shotgun they have right now, is the .500 caliber Nitro Express, a very powerful elephant gun. I love this little line here. We shooting. What was it you said you did for a living? I kill people for a living there, Kincaid.
Wait, so it is supposed to be an elephant gun, not a shotgun. Okay. It's an elephant gun. I mean, the way that thing went flying out, it definitely looked more like a rifle round rather than some scatter shot.
Yeah, man. And the Skyfall Lodge is actually not a real building, but
I hope not. They burn that shit down.
But actually, it's actually just a purpose-built exterior set made of plywood and plaster. The actual filming location is actually called the Hankerley Common in Surrey, England. So
they didn't even make it to Scotland.
Yeah. Well, the setting is.
That's what I'm saying. They shot in England. These lying bastards.
The exterior is Scotland. The interior is England.
The interior of the house.
I love how he tells this story here about James went in here for 3 days straight. When he came out, he wasn't even born no more. It's just crazy to think about. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like fucking like your parents' death fuck you up that much, and also this is the first time when they actually name James Bond's parents, Andrew Bond and Monique Delacroix Bond.
Oh, he's getting that French girl.
And no, actually she's Swiss.
Delacroix. Oh yeah, I guess that'd be
Yeah, she's Swiss.
Yeah, the French names too.
Yeah, a Scotsman and a Swiss chick made James Bond. I love it when they go all Home Alone. In James Bond's house, rigging all these. All they need is a little map. Yeah, like Kevin.
But I do think it's nice the way they set this up, so that if you're ever wondering how do you create homemade claymores.
Yeah, fucking like
you got everything set up for you. Holy shit!
Like all the little improvised explosives and shit they threw out throughout the whole house, and improvised gunshots in different places and shit.
Yeah.
Traps, booby traps and shit, basically.
I mean, he does a hell of a job prepping the battlefield.
Yes, he does, man. And Emma's helping out, too. Kincaid loading all the guns and shit. Man, he's going for battle. He really do not like that house.
Well, I mean, it's probably full of a lot of bad memories.
Yeah, I love when right before he leaves, before Burns, I was like, I never did like this place. With the dynamite. Yeah.
You?
That's real old dynamite.
Yeah, I wouldn't be waving it around quite that much, buddy.
Yeah, but it's oh man. Sawed off shotguns and shit. Oh my god.
I'm sure the Brits love that. They probably have 5 cops standing off to the side just to make sure that it got put away at the end of the night.
Oh yeah, another thing, going back to the scene where they were on the island. That was actually the 11th time that Bond actually played a game with the villain. Like in like different movies, he's playing like golf with bad guys. The most common one is him playing baccarat with bad guys. Yeah. And this right here is the first time they ever say "fuck" in the Bond movie. Well, Judy just like really fucked this one up, didn't I? Yeah. Yeah, you did. Yeah.
There's our one for PG-13. Yeah. You go on a tirade, we're going R.
Yeah, really fuck this one up. And I love his little line here. It's like, "I read your obituary of me. You like it, Paulie?" Yeah. Actually, I read the original one. I have the novel, and fucking in the original obituary, they actually make reference to the Bond novels. Huh? They're like fucking like he's a exemplary employee of the government whose exploits have been satirized in novels. Which is hilarious. Yeah, definitely appalling. Yeah, man. So I thought that was really cool. Look at this shit here.
I thought this was great. The bad guys would rather walk in. Yeah. Because you want to be tired before a fight.
Yeah, it's like a mile to the house.
It's got to be at least 2.
Yeah, to the house.
Shit, to that tree line.
God damn. That's a long ass way.
Let's just fan out in the open here and see if we can't get ourselves shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I love how you like fucking in the car waiting with the fucking gadgets and shit. Just waiting for y'all motherfuckers.
That's right, bitch. Let me show you what my car can do.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure you
That's a great shot, too, using the chrome.
Yes.
Have the guys walking across, show them the massing.
Yeah.
That's just killer.
Yeah. Such a good movie, man. Let's go home alone in this motherfucker. Mm-hmm. Playing the explosive on the door. All right, everybody spread out. Spread out. No, he already out here. Mowing y'all motherfuckers down. But they tearing up the damn car, though. Mm-hmm. Damn.
That's what I was saying. That's the heartbreak part.
Yeah, they're tearing up that car, man. Damn. Not a gunplay here, folks. Welcome to
shotgun.
Welcome to Scotland.
Which is probably the last time anyone said anything that badass since Braveheart.
Yeah.
I mean, in Scotland. Specifically. Normally it's like, welcome to Scotland, we're doing heroin. The Claymores.
Yeah, and this movie was released in 2012 to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Bond. Man, but it's not the first anniversary Bond movie to be released. Die Another Day was actually the 40th anniversary. Tomorrow Never Dies was the 35th anniversary. The Living Daylights was the 25th anniversary. Man. And The Spy Who Loved Me was the 15th anniversary.
He's scoring headshots with an elephant gun shooting from the hip.
Jesus Christ.
I don't know, dude. How the hell that shit didn't just go flying out of his hand? Yeah. But here's the good news. Now he's finally into some modern armaments.
Yes.
He's taking guns from the bad guys.
Yes.
Reminds me of that great line from We Were Soldiers when he's trying to talk him getting the M16 and he goes, time comes I need one, there'll be plenty of them lying around. That's what it was. Like, all right, I guess I need one of these. There's a bunch of them on the ground now.
And actually, freaking the explosion that happens here of the house is actually shot over 2 nights. And actually, is the second consecutive climax where someplace explodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this happens in a lot of Bond movies. A lot of the movies end with the place exploding.
And then he's blown clear.
Yeah. Or he just happened to get out just in time, that kind of shit. Apparently this is actually not the first place to be first Bond movie to be shot in Scotland. Apparently, From Russia with Love has certain.
When? I don't remember that.
Apparently they did. From Russia with Love had certain locations in Scotland. The Spy Who Loved Me, the naval base was actually in Scotland. And,
but I mean.
Okay. Oh yeah, and the castle they were at the beginning of The World Is Not Enough was in Scotland.
I don't remember that from those two. The naval base doesn't count though because you're just looking at. I mean. It's not iconic to the area. You're literally just looking at a bunch of boats, submarines sitting around like it's nothing.
Yeah,
It's like saying we went to California because you're in Pendleton.
But I love this shot here where he coming into the song, boom, 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 gonna shoot you right down. That's pretty menacing.
Yeah.
But pretty badass too.
Yeah, I always gotta make an entrance.
Boom, 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 boom. And actually, this
down
is
to the cellar, gonna burn my house down.
And the main reason that Daniel Craig suggested Sam Mendes to shoot this movie is because in fact he worked with him before on Road to Perdition.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's right. That's a good film.
Road to Perdition, yes it was. And the third.
Look in your heart.
I don't know why it's making you laugh so much.
It's because of Family Guy, man.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it is. So stupid. Oh man, stupid. But now Tiago Rodriguez is shooting up the damn house. I like Tiago Rodriguez just a little more than Silva. Silva's a cool name. I don't know. I just like Rodriguez a little bit more. Let's see more bad guy.
Well, there's more syllables.
Yeah,
Rodriguez. It sounds more foreign.
Rodriguez. Like whenever I remember when I used to whenever I do like a parody of a cop, I'm like, hey, I gotta take him down. I gotta take down Sanchez. It's always something name like that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, there's something about the way it rolls off your tongue, right?
Yes,
the alliteration, the way that I don't know. It's just weird the way certain words go together.
Yeah, and this is actually the final film. I actually realized this is the final film performance of the late Albert Finney.
Who, by the way, I fucking love that guy.
Yeah, Albert Finney.
He did so many killer films.
Annie.
Yeah.
Woven.
Woven, that was wonderful.
Yeah, and the Bourne movie he did. The Bourne Ultimatum. He was the fucking dude that recruited Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
I recruited you.
He was the dad in Big Fish too, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Which is actually one of my. Honestly, it's between that and Batman for my favorite Burton film.
I liked Big Fish. One of my favorite.
I love it, especially as a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm. It's cool, but like
because well, I mean, honestly, like the whole thing with like how the father and son are kind of fighting with each other. And it's all about the way that the dad tells stories. Yeah, I really identify with that side of things because I feel like I run into that with people sometimes. It's a storyteller thing, man.
I got you.
You know, that's what I love about it.
I get it. It's just like this is me. It's a personal choice. It's cool, but it's not like my favorite.
All right, fine. It's my Timothy Dalton. Let's move on.
Shut up. My favorite Tim Burton movie, obviously after Batman, would be Pee-wee's Big Adventure. That's my favorite one.
Oh, you know what? I fucked up.
What?
It's gonna be Mars Attacks. I love that stupid movie so much.
So fucking stupid. Tom Joseph man. Singing It's Not Unusual and shit. And so many goddamn cameos. Michael J. Fox, Jack Nicholson, all this shit, yeah. Such a weird ass movie.
Friggin' Jack Nicholson, like 7 roles in that thing.
Yeah, he did actually. He killed him each and every one of them though.
Here's a good moment.
Oh yeah.
Gonna blow up my house.
I never did like this place.
Now I gotta say, the sequence here in just a little bit, when they've got him silhouetted by the fire of his house, that's one of my all-time favorite shots in the film ever.
Yeah, I agree.
It is absolutely breathtakingly gorgeous and haunting and twisted all at the same time.
I give you that, yeah. Yeah, this is so fucking cool. He just throwing out his damn what is it supposed to be, grenades? Or?
Yeah, they're a bunch of incendiary grenades.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, so they look like, because they're red.
It's like sulfur.
Yeah, they look like
not sulfur. What do they call it? It's
phosphorus.
Phosphorus. That's the weird shit.
Okay. Damn.
It's been a long day. I started at 6.
Hey,
I had to go to work.
I get it. It's cool. I understand.
Because we don't make no money on this yet.
Yeah, I get it. I understand. We got to work. I got to work in the morning too. But I'm watching this.
That right there is heartbreaking to me. What they're doing in this car.
Yeah, man. Oh yeah.
Why?
Oh yeah. And I love the little shot where he's like, he sees them fucking up his car. It's like, and then the music builds like, oh fuck y'all. Blew up my car?
I just hope that was literally a kit car exterior and they didn't just kill a real one.
No, I'm pretty sure they didn't kill a real one, man. And yeah, how the music builds. Oh, you fucked up now.
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix Dr. Wu, you done fucked up now.
Another friend ended by kung fu treachery.
Phoenix Dr. Wu, you done fucked up now.
Threw that shit before I came in the room.
So fucking stupid. That's a stupid fucking movie, man.
Dude, it's the best. I love that.
I was hating this place the other night, but I blew up his house. Such a fucking stupid. I'm not stuck in my head now, you motherfucker.
Okay, wait. So here's the thing. His family had so much fucking money. They had their own church.
Yeah,
on
right.
their property.
Oh yeah, that's true.
insane.
That's true. Yeah. Fireball.
And here we go. Chopper crash
into the house.
And fire is getting bigger.
This is gonna get even bigger now. God damn.
Well, full fuel tanks, man.
God damn. Look at that explosion, bro. 2 nights to film that explosion.
Yep.
Jesus. Here come the fireball.
I don't know why you stopped running.
I don't know why you stopped running. You saw the fireball coming, bro. Man, so crazy.
Well, and then we had the first indication earlier that Em was hurt when she was holding her gunshot.
And now you actually see
now
it.
now you can actually see what's going on. But this is what I'm talking about. This whole sequence right here, it is absolutely amazing the way they shot this.
Yes. Look at that. They're gone.
And then there was 2.
Yeah. But then he oh my God, he's kind of pissed off, like, they're gone? No? But then he sees the light. He's like, oh, wait. Yeah.
Because he's got the light out in the distance.
Yeah. Well,
Should have just gone dark, man.
he should have just gone dark.
Where's the OPSEC?
Plus you had the light from fire. You pretty sure you could have seen.
Yeah, I think you could have found your way without that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the problem that he's dealing with. He's the only one who has any kind of idea.
And look at him, he's like, there's still a chance.
OPSEC.
There's still a chance. I'll still get him.
M's too busy being hurt from being shot to do anything about it. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, old boy's never been anything but a caretaker, so
Yeah.
he doesn't know that he shouldn't be using a flashlight right now.
Now, going back real quick to Naomi Harris, she actually was given a personal training and worked out for about 2 months, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. She did yoga, kickboxing, running, circuit training, and then 1 day a week she did combat fighting training. And then for 1 or 2 days a week she would do stunt driving training. And then 3 days a week she did gun training. So
Nice.
Yeah, she was ready for this movie, man.
Got some time in.
Yeah. And this is actually only the second time in the Bond franchise where they introduced 3 new cast members in one movie. There's the new M, the new Q, and the new Moneypenny. That kind of shit.
Oh, no, people know it's Moneypenny. You were holding that for the end.
I was, but fucking.
It's the
But
end.
yeah, this shit.
Yeah, here we go. That's the Tom Cruise run.
Yes, it is.
He needs-
That is the Tom Cruise run. That is
He's got to
official.
get a gun.
It is official. Boom!
Oh, well, I'll get the next gun.
Yeah. But then, going on to the fucking ice, man. Damn.
Yeah, because it's quicker than going around.
Jesus.
This actually is the kind of shit that gives me nightmares.
Yeah, fucking going on like a thing of ice, and you come find there's like nowhere else to go. Well, you could go around.
Did you get ice where you grew up in Alabama?
Very rarely.
We get it in Utah and in Wyoming, and I refused to go out on it because I was scared shitless.
Yeah, well,
everybody knows somebody or heard some story about somebody going
It would
through.
snow like maybe every 6 years. They've been doing it more frequently in recent years, but I haven't been there. But when I was young, it was every 6 years.
Yeah,
and it was like some crazy shit, like we didn't know what to fucking do.
Dude, it's scary as fuck to be out there on that ice.
Yeah, it's exhausting, man. All this running and all this shit. I love this little speech he gives. I'm like, all this running and the shooting, this is exhausting, bro.
Just relax.
How'd you get on the ice again? Yeah, the henchman on the ice, and then he just appears from behind Bond. I thought it was weird.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, now they have a little fight on the ice. It's gonna fucking.
We're gonna have a fight underwater here shortly.
Yeah, ice cold water at that, man. Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, and actually, funny enough, first time that it happened for Bond in terms of like introducing new characters was GoldenEye. New Bond, new M, Judi Dench, first time was in, and new Moneypenny. Another new Moneypenny.
Yeah.
It was Samantha Bond at the time.
Well, it was, if we're going to say goodbye to Judi Dench, it makes sense we'd reboot everybody.
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah, apparently, because we were talking about Turkey earlier, and the first opening sequence was in Turkey. Apparently, that was Ian Fleming's favorite city in the world was Istanbul.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Which is why the Bond movies are
done so much that happens
in Turkey. Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty city, but I don't know about favorite. That's him.
Now he just finally killed the henchman with a crazy headlock using his leg.
Mm-hmm. Which is dope. Very, very MMA.
But this is the scary, 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 shitty part right here.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell do you get out?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and remember we were talking about Mallory was talking about like the retirement plan that she was gonna get the British certification, the DCMG Dame Commander of the Most Distinguished Order of Saint Michael and Saint George. She actually is a Dame, but she's actually a DBE, Dame of the Order of the British Empire, for her artistic contributions.
Yeah. Andrew Bond and Monique Delacroix Bond.
First time you see the parents of James Bond. He just laughs at that shit. Oh, those are your folks? Okay, cool.
Well, he's probably an orphan himself. That's probably what he's laughing about.
Obviously.
Most of those guys are, right? I mean, it makes sense.
Orphans make the best.
The best agents.
Make the best agents, yeah. And also, going back to Naomi real quick, she's actually the fourth actress of Jamaican descent to play a Bond girl. The first one was some chick named Margaret Lawars, who was on Dr. No. She was like Miss Jamaica at the time. And then the second one was Martine Beswick, who actually played two different Bond girls. She was in From Russia with Love, the Gypsy Fight.
Okay, yeah.
She was one of the girls in the Gypsy Fight, and then she played his friend Paula in Thunderball, the one that gets killed.
Oh, okay.
So the same actress, and then Grace Jones is of Jamaican descent.
I don't know. Is that?
Yeah, Grace Jones. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and apparently Grace Jones was born in Spanish Town, Jamaica, where Naomi Harris's mom was from. And actually, Naomi Harris spent some time there as a child, and then of course Ian Fleming wrote most of the Bond novels in Jamaica. So there's a lot of Jamaican connections in the Bond movies.
You know what? It's part of the British Empire. Makes sense.
Yes, it is. And now he sees,
now he sees that she's been shot.
He's like, no, you can't die before I kill you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like, bullshit. No.
You're supposed to be perfect and whole when I blow your brains out.
No, you can't die before I kill you. It's fucking up my shit, man.
Yeah.
The fuck? He's so like angry and pissed off. He don't know what to do.
And I mean, one of the things that they actually did fairly well in this, which is kind of crazy, because a lot of times people get this stuff wrong. Mm-hmm. They did a really good job with his pathology.
Yes.
Because for him, it's all about this fantasy.
Yeah, of being able to finally kill him.
Well, no, it's a murder-suicide fantasy.
Yeah, like we gotta go together. And just as about to fucking commit it, knock it to the back.
Mm-hmm.
Ah.
That wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah. You're like, ah! the little extra roar he gives, like, yeah, like he turns around, he looks at him like, oh, look.
I was about to come.
yeah, basically.
That's what it is, right?
You screwed up my nut, man. Come on.
You totally ruined that.
The fuck, bro?
I've been building to this for weeks.
Yeah. No, what the fuck, man? I like the little line here. Going back to the rat story. Last rat standing. James Bond. Yeah. Oh, man. Last rat standing. And this scene here, what we're about to see.
That's a big knife, too.
Yeah, and this scene here we're about to see is actually, canonically, Judi Dench's last part in the Bond franchise. Yeah. They shot it in order. This is their last scene in the movie.
They actually shot it? That's cool.
This is actually her last scene in the movie. And And it's only the second time in the history of the Bond films that Bond actually cries.
Yeah.
The first time, of course, was the death of his wife, Teresa, on their wedding day. We have all the time in the world. That was sad, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even like I like a lot of people tend to shit on Her Majesty's Secret Service, but I think it's such a dope movie because fucking number one, it's the first time it's the only time you see Bond getting married, and also the only time you see him like it's the only Bond movie with a sad ending.
Well, and I think that's why people didn't like it because it was so against type.
Yeah.
And again, even though I like banging on Moonraker, it ain't Moonraker.
And then her last words were, looking at Bond, at least I got something right.
Yeah.
Damn. It's emotional, man.
Well, and I mean, the other thing, too, putting him back at his family church, his family home, all of that, he's essentially going through the loss of a parent again.
Again, yeah.
And this is the only person he's ever been close to, aside from his parents, really. Yeah. He's always had that distance, except for with her.
Exactly.
Now, this is just...
I lost my mama again, man.
Yep.
Fucking crazy. And like, I'm trying to make it emotional to watch this, but this is such a well-acted scene.
Well, that's what's so great about this film. I mean, there's I know we bag on a lot of stuff that we love and kind of find ways to make jokes. I've watched this a lot.
Yeah. I
don't have anywhere to pick on it or to give it a hard time. It's so solid.
Now here's James Bond's Batman shot.
Yeah.
Looking over England with the Union Jack.
On probably the brightest, sunniest day in the history of England.
Yeah, because it's usually pretty dreary.
I mean, I was only there for a week when I was there, but
it just rained all the time.
No, I mean it was just never that clear, even if it wasn't raining.
Yeah.
Money penny.
Miss Money penny. Now, Eve is about to give James M's last thing, before she
last away.
Last present for him. Just as a little reminder here. And of course, it's that damn dog.
I love that, man. I think that's great. I love the Dalton figure.
Yeah.
If I go back to England again, I'll get one of those.
That's what's up.
Well, and I like how the whole thing is like, oh, maybe it's her way of telling you need to retire, take a desk job. It's the exact opposite.
Yeah, here you go. There's the box. I wonder if they show it here.
Yeah,
it's pretty quick.
Yeah, it's really fast to just open it.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a damn dog. The damn dog. So she left from the dog. Quite the opposite. Sign of patriotism. Keep on doing it, James.
Keep on kicking ass.
Keep on doing it, James.
Do 2 more movies. 2 more.
Two more, brother. 2 more, kid. And
go make another $40 million.
And now, as they go down to the office, this is the first time you see the office like the traditional James Bond office.
Yeah, with the leather door.
Yeah, with the money printing section right in front of it and shit, like how it's always been. I never did get your name. Oh, well, my name is Eve. Eve Moneypenny.
Mm-hmm.
That's Moneypenny. And with that, Naomi Harris becomes the 4th actress to play Miss Moneypenny.
Mm-hmm.
After Lois Maxwell, who was the longest one who played it way too long for Moneypenny. Like it's getting kind of embarrassing at that point. It's like freaking like, come on, baby. Like it's been 20 plus years. If he ain't gonna fuck you back then when you was kind of cute, he can fuck you now when you super old, man.
How much time you spent in England?
Jesus Christ.
It's a different pool.
I'm just saying. She was Lois Maxwell was Miss Moneypenny from the first one, Dr. No, on to the last one was A View to a Kill. Roger Moore's last one.
I'm just saying, being in California, you're spoiled because literally all the most beautiful people in the world come here to try to be actresses.
But now we see Ray Fiennes is now the new M, and he automatically has a mission for Bond. Are you ready to get back to work? With pleasure, M. With pleasure. And now we finally see Daniel Craig doing the gun barrel sequence. Now he is truly James Bond. Gun barrel sequence never gets old, bro.
Which honestly, it's kind of a little
Happy
ridiculous.
50 years, James Bond will return. Yes, he does actually.
It's kind of ridiculous, but it's also inventive. And it's only ridiculous because it's been around for so long.
Yes.
That's the only reason it ever seems even remotely ridiculous.
Oh yeah, man. But yeah.
All right, so that's been
Skyfall. Just a couple final factoids.
The one where M finally dies.
I'm thinking we can come with a better name than that.
You just like the Judi Dench too much.
Yeah, I do like Judi Dench, but like it's
like I said, I love her too. It was just getting to be a little bit too much screen time with her, not enough with Bond.
True, I give you that.
Because by the time we got to Spectre, even though we've gone over the couple of things in Spectre that I wasn't as keen on, you're with Daniel Craig as James Bond almost the entire film. You don't have as many cutaways. Right.
Now, in terms of box office, this is to date the most successful James Bond movie at the international box office. This is the first James Bond movie to be shot entirely on digital. It's the first James Bond movie in IMAX. First James Bond movie to make over $1 billion.
Nice.
Yes, it did. The theme song by Adele is the first Bond movie to share the. It's actually the first Bond song to share the same title as the movie since Madonna's "Die Another Day."
And that almost killed the franchise.
Yeah, God, oh my God. Now, sorry. Why is that making me laugh so much?
Because it's true.
It's true. God damn. Okay. Also, this is the first time an Academy Award-winning director actually did a Bond movie because Sam Mendes won for American Beauty. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see what else here. The royal premiere actually had a reunion of the families of Harry Saltzman and Albert Broccoli because of the fact that they were the original producers of the Bond films. Mm-hmm. But around the time of The Spy Who Loved Me and The Man with the Gold Gun, they became estranged and they didn't talk to each other for years and years. It also was a reunion with the family of Ian Fleming. Actually, several members of their surviving family were there, including Ian Fleming's cousin, Christopher Lee. Scaramanga was there. October 5th, 2012 was named Global James Bond Day. It was created by the production to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the James Bond franchise. Basically, it featured worldwide events celebrating the golden anniversary of the James Bond films, including a global online and live charity auction arranged by Christie's of London, a global survey to discover the favorite James Bond film country by country, a film retrospective at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, a music of Bond night out here in LA, and also they came up with a new special designing 007 50 Years of James Bond style in Toronto. Now, the overall gross of Skyfall was $1.109 billion.
Damn.
At the time of its release, it's the highest grossing Sony film of all time and the second highest grossing film of 2012 after The Avengers. Now, its opening weekend, it grossed $80 million in 25 markets. It grossed 20 million pounds on its opening weekend in London.
It's like 40 million US.
Yeah, making it the second highest grossing Friday to Sunday debut ever in London after Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2.
That damn wizard.
It achieved the second highest grossing IMAX debut after The Dark Knight Rises. It set the record for the highest grossing 7-day gross with $37.2 billion in London, surpassing The Deathly Hallows. Let's see what else here. It is the highest grossing Bond film of all time in the UK. It became the highest grossing film in the UK ever at one point, surpassing Avatar.
Damn.
And as of December 30th of 2012, it became the first film to gross £100 million in the UK. The box office receipts made it only the 14th film and the first ever Bond film to cross $1 million. And actually, it's the seventh highest grossing film ever made in the UK, pushing past the actual long time highest grossing film adjusted for inflation was Thunderball, which would have been $1.47 billion. Now, it said an opening record.
To be fair, there wasn't a lot competing against Thunderball when it came out. Though.
It had the widest opening of any Bond movie. Let's see what else here. Shit. Let's see. Yeah, it had the in most format theaters. It blah 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 yada yada. It had the biggest debut ever for a Bond film in the U.S.
As it should have.
Yeah. Overall, it gained over in the U.S. It gained over $300 million in both the U.S. and Canada to make it and making it the fourth highest grossing movie in 2012 in those regions. Now, at the 2013 Academy Awards, the movie became the first ever Bond movie to achieve several records for the franchise. The highest number of Academy Award nominations for a Bond movie. It had 5: Best Song, Best Score, Best Sound Mixing, Best Special Effects, and Best Cinematography. First Bond movie in 3 decades to receive Oscar nominations. The last time it happened was in 1981 when For Your Eyes Only was nominated for Best Song. And also in 1982, Cubby Broccoli got the honorary Thalberg Award. It was actually the first Bond movie to win 2 Oscars, even though both Goldfinger and Thunderball actually won 1 each.
Yeah.
It's the third Bond movie to ever win an Academy Award, and the first in 47 years. The last time was Thunderball. It actually tied the Oscar for sound editing, and it actually wasn't the first time that they won that. That's what Goldfinger won for. They won for sound and special effects for Goldfinger. And let's see what else here. As far as the song goes itself, many other Bond movies Bond songs were nominated for Best Song Oscar: "Live and Let Die," "For Your Eyes Only," "The Spy Who Loved Me," and but Adele's "Skyfall" was the first one to actually win the Academy Award. Adele, like I said, Adele was pregnant when she recorded it, and that's why her voice is so deep. And Skyfall is the first Billboard Top 10 to win the Academy Award for Best Song since Eminem's "Lose Yourself." And actually, at 2 hours and 23 minutes, this is the second longest Bond movie of all time. The first one being Casino Royale.
Well, Daniel Craig's got a lot of good records.
Yes, he does.
And making a hell of a great imprint on this franchise. I can't wait to see what happens with...
No Time to Die.
Well, I was going to say Bond 25, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's
No Time to Die.
That's the name of the next Bond film, ladies and gentlemen. No Time to Die, which comes out this next coming year, 2020. I believe it'll probably be later in the year. They usually premiere the Bond movies later in the year.
You know what? Considering, what is it now? They're 56 years old in the Bond franchise? 57?
Yeah.
They've actually done pretty well to hit 25 movies already. I mean, that's basically a movie just a little over every about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
That's hella fast turnaround.
Except for there's a couple instances where there are like huge gaps due to the delays.
Right, but I just mean the average, the amount that they've been able to get out, that they're averaging over that length of time, about every 2.5 years. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, when they get a steady stream going, usually about every 2 years.
It's because they make up for it when they're coming back after being down.
Yeah. But like I said, we hope you folks enjoyed watching Skyfall with us as much as we enjoyed watching it and shit. Now, as far as actually, you know what? Nice little thing to close out. What is your favorite Bond movie ever?
Mine?
Yes.
Actually, it's probably Skyfall.
Is it?
It's a toss-up between Skyfall and Casino Royale.
Mine is actually For Your Eyes Only.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I love that movie. I don't know what it is. Like ever since, I think it's really the opening sequence that kind of pitched me on it, because the fact that it was like the Dr. Evil dude. That's the first time. Yeah, it was Blofeld or whatever. And like it's the first time I actually seen it in a Bond movie. When I watched it, it was like, oh, that's from James Bond.
That's when it finally all clicked.
Like, oh, okay. And he's in the wheelchair, and I like the sequence because it's the remote control helicopter while he's in a wheelchair, like laughing and taunting him. I look forward to this moment, Mr. Bond. I intend to enjoy it to the full. He's like in a wheelchair with the cat and all this other shit. He's just cackling. But then he finally Bond breaks free and gets him and throws him to a goddamn chimney stack.
It is iconic.
Throws a handicapped man into a chimney stack, even though the handicapped man was trying to kill him. And the weird thing,
because Bond believes in equality.
Yeah, he does. But the weird thing he was offering him, I'll buy you a delicatessen in stainless steel. Nobody understands that joke except for Cubby Broccoli, apparently, because he's the one that suggested it. But, okay. What is a delicatessen in stainless steel?
I always thought a delicatessen was a deli.
That's what most people think. I said the same thing, like a delicatessen. Apparently, it just means a lot. Maybe it's like a lot, like an abundance of stainless steel, but it's a lot. It makes no sense. Like,
you know what? we're quoting it, so it did its job.
Yeah. Plus, I always like the score of that movie because it's done by Bill Conti, the same dude that does the Rocky movies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's got a little disco in it, but it has some traditional Bond in there too. There's some little jazz in there, little disco.
Look, Bond has had a crazy 57-year history, and he's always in the moment.
I don't know what the sound effect is, but it's like when they got the guitars, like there's a lot of that shit. Like even the gun barrel sequence. It does that shit.
You know what? Every Bond movie is imprinted in the time it was made. That's for sure.
Yeah. So
pop culture as hell.
So for the record, my favorite Bond, Timothy Dalton, and for the record, my favorite Bond film, For Your Eyes Only, which is actually a Roger Moore movie, but I just really enjoy it.
You know what? It's fine. You can bounce between them.
Yeah, I do have
at least I finally understand why you say Timothy Dalton.
Yeah, I have a favorite for each guy. So
yeah, 100%.
Mine for Sean Connery is From Russia with Love.
I'm Diamonds Are Forever.
I think From Russia with Love is the best one. For Roger Moore, For Your Eyes Only. Timothy Dalton, of his 2 movies that he made, I like Living Daylights a little bit more. For Pierce Brosnan, GoldenEye.
Yeah, well,
that's really the only one. GoldenEye. And so far for Daniel Craig, as much as I love Skyfall, I gotta give it to Casino Royale.
See, and again, like I said, it's a toss-up for me between the two because what Casino Royale for me represents was the saving of the Bond franchise. Because like I said, they went too far with Pierce Brosnan. It was too comic booky. It was too crazy. It was too out there. It was too This brought it back down and put it in an attainable space for me. Because like I told you before, when it comes to movies, I've got one of 2 thought processes. I either want to say, all the rules of reality, fuck it, throw it out the window. I'm going to go for broke and we're going to get crazy and have some fun. Or I want something, whether it's a little bit of outrageous comedy, if we're going to do like an action sequence, whatever it is, I want something that has its feet still planted in reality. Even if we're going to get a little bit exaggerating with the details, even if we're going to, hang on the bottom of an elevator and ride it 50 floors up and then, shimmy up the way that he did. And for me, Casino Royale is a seminal moment because it's the reset where we got better. Quantum of Solace was an okay bridge. Skyfall, it's just such a fantastic film. Like I said, I mean, there's stuff in almost every movie that I can pick out and kind of play with and have fun with. I haven't been able to do it yet with Skyfall where I'm going, here was a little mistake, here's a this, here's a that. It's phenomenal.
I agree. I really do.
And even the only thing I was pointing out before about the guys getting loose, like I said, in the next one, that's what they end up solving at the very beginning, the opening sequence, Inspector.
Yeah.
So the only kind of sort of hole in the movie is plugged by the sequel coming up.
True.
So there's no holes. There's no plot holes. There's no, how did that happen? That didn't make sense. It all comes together.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Yeah. But like I said, again, we hope you enjoyed this movie.
Holy shit, this might be our longest one ever.
Is it?
Well, it was a 2.5-hour movie. We had our little preamble. I think we're over 3.
All right, good.
Hope you like the new song.
Yeah, I hope you like the new song. But yeah, like folks, like I said, we're going to discuss what we're going to be doing next week because actually the next Wednesday is like the New Year.
Yep.
So I don't know what's going to be happening or whatever.
Figure it out.
We'll figure it out. But like I said, we're gonna try to give you guys a show next week somehow, some way, somehow. Some way, somehow, somehow. But again, this has been Dropping That Culture with JD.
Oh, and AJ. Usually say with JD and AJ, I'm JD, and then I say I'm AJ. That's what I expected you to say. That's what you did in the opening.
Let's try this again.
Okay, take 2.
This has been Dropping That Culture. I'm JD.
I'm AJ.
And we hope you folks have a good night.
Later.
Dropping that culture. 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 Dropping that culture.